Let's protect our fossils, because if they're removed, America loses them forever.
for help? We gotta reboot the system first.
The door locks! Ellie, boot up the door locks!
All the files of the whole park. It tells you everything. I gotta find the right file. Oh, this is it. This might be the right file.
I don't want you on this game right now.
What are you talking about?
You've been on kill 'em up games all day and all yesterday.
It's because my new favorite game.
I don't like it. You know.
This isn't the right file. This might be the right file. This isn't the right file. This might be the right file.
I was laying in my bed last night thinking about that, bro. Like, if I just, like, took a shovel and I just started to dig into my grass, I wonder when I'd hit the ocean, bro.
This isn't the right file. This might be the right file. This isn't the right file. You got it! Yes!
Dinosaurs lived a long time ago. They were terrible lizards, don't you know? Some ate plants, some ate meat, some ate fish, and some ate beets. Oh, hello, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome back to Paleontologizing. I'm glad you're here. I say happy Friday even though it might not be Friday where you're watching, if you're in a different time zone, or if you're watching later on, in the VOD or on YouTube. I'm glad you're here, regardless of where and when you are. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Today, we are going to be doing some Q&A, talking about Utah paleontology. I'm going to be out in the field, digging up dinosaurs next week. As early as Tuesday. And I'll probably be streaming Wednesday for the first time next week. But yeah, anyway. This is the last stream of the week here from my office. Here in the beautiful sunny San Francisco Bay Area. I'm going to be in Utah before you know it. Anyway, let me introduce myself though. Where are my manners? If it's your first time here, welcome. If it's not, welcome back. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. A paleontologist is a scientist who studies fossils. I work on dinosaur fossils in particular. Dinosaurs are... hang on. Monster last as long as 9 months, like your support us. Thank you so much, Monster. I really appreciate that. Welcome back. It's good to have you here. What's I saying? Oh yeah, paleontology. Paleontology is the study of fossils. Most paleontologists do not work on dinosaurs. I want to make that very clear. Paleontology is a very broad field. The study of fossil organisms in general, everything from fossil bacteria to fungi to plants, fossil whales, whatever. I work on dinosaur stuff, as you can probably guess. Looking at my office here. Dinosaurs are what I study, what I publish on in the scientific literature, and what I dig up during the summers. It's been very nice enjoying the air conditioning and everything here for the past couple weeks, but I can't wait to get back out to the field next week and continue some dinosaur excavations out near Moab, Utah, and I'll be streaming it too. So, I hope you're half as excited for that as I am. Welcome to Paleontologizing. I'm leaving on Monday morning, Golganak. First thing. Yeah. Anyway, good stuff. And Dr. Hep says snails and clams here with the plants as a side interest. Very cool. Yeah. Again, paleontology is a study of fossil organisms in general. Who have we got here? Science Streams. Hello, Belinda. How are you doing? Welcome, welcome. Hope your week is finishing off well, Science. Kodali, Musi Fate, it's Orla, Biohazard. Thank you again, Biohazard, for the subscription there. I really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Azzy Lace and DM Wing, Miss Capri Kel and Benzor, Game Over, and Fall Machine, Napalm Pop Tart and Lino Fresco, Dinosaur Dave and Hakabus, Tolkien Otaku and Samich Nom Nom, Lenina. How are you doing, Lenina? Welcome, welcome. It's good to see everybody here. Holy cow. We are starting today's stream early, by the way, because I need to end it 1 hour early. And rather than just cut the stream short, I figured I'd try to do a 4-hour stream, but I've got to be gone by 5 p.m. California time here. I've got some stuff I got to do this evening, so yeah. And let's see. Tone Rebellion says maybe someone is watching 66.7 million years later, and this is a fossilized video. If it is, hello, future organisms. I hope the future is going nicely for you. And Nightingale Champ says, I'm going to 2 natural history museums this month. Very nice. Cool. Would you be willing to share which ones? That sounds neat. And Napalm Pop-Tart. I will be doing exactly that, trying to fit more books into my 1 allowed airline bag on Monday. I'm actually going to be trying to finish some books that I'm currently reading so that I don't have to bring them. Yeah. But yeah. And Dino Dax says, hey, right back at you, Dino Dax. Hello. And Blue is lurking off to the side. Well, hello, Blue and Lenina. I hope you're both doing well. It's good to see you. Like I said, fieldwork starts again next week. I can't guarantee I'll stream on Tuesday. Tuesday's a travel day, along with Monday. But I will stream on Wednesday, provided all the equipment works and everything. So I'm very excited about that. And let's take a look at the calendar. Put that going on here. July 2024. There we go. And yeah, fieldwork stream from the Badlands of Utah, if conditions permit, on the 17th. That's Wednesday. And then that continues through at least the 8th, I think. Possibly through the 15th. We will have to see. A lot of this depends on our level of funding, our level of fatigue, our what we happen to have going in the quarry at the time, all that stuff. But we're going to be digging in the earliest Cretaceous Cedar Mountain Formation of eastern Utah. Very excited for this. The same place I've been digging for the past 2 years with the Utah Geological Survey crew. And really excited to bring you along again. Show you what it's like to dig up dinosaurs live. Just like we were doing last month in Wyoming. And one in London. Oh, very cool, Nightingale Champ. Very, very cool. The NHM in London in particular is an awesome, awesome museum. I'm not familiar with the Museum Naturalis in Leiden, but I hope that's good too. Yeah. Hakaba says, as a paleontologist, what do you think of archaeologists? All of the archaeologists I've met, personally, have been lovely people. I think, like archaeologists, we as paleontologists are a little bit irked that we get mixed up with one another in the minds of the public. Sometimes when, archaeologists get asked if they dig up dinosaurs. And then when people find out that I dig up dinosaurs, they ask, oh, what's it like being an archaeologist? But archaeology and paleontology are very, very different fields. Crucial differences is that archaeologists study human artifacts, paleontologists study fossils.
Let's protect our fossils, because if they're removed, America loses them forever.
And thank you, Cockpoo6. I really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Welcome to the community. Thank you for that recurring sub. Holy cow, do I appreciate that. Enjoy those emotes like these and these and these and these and these and these. Hope you enjoy. And yeah, I'll be out in the field in like 4 days. Holy cow. Can't wait. Yeah. Good stuff. Oh, also, crucial difference between paleontologists and archaeologists. As paleontologists, we dig in rock, in bedrock, when we're finding fossils. Archaeologists do their excavations in alluvium or soil or, you know, loose stuff at the surface. So it's very different that way. Archaeology is extremely recent stuff when we're talking about the history of life on Earth. Paleontology gets a lot more ancient than that. Fossils up to, you know, over 1 billion years old sometimes. And let's see here. And Janine's mess, I appreciate that. Happy Saturday morning to you. A Canada road trip to go to museums and things. Ideas where to go? Dinosaur Dave, holy cow. There's a ton of stuff in Alberta. There's the ROM in Toronto. There's a few fossil sites up in British Columbia now. There's Yoho National Park up in British Columbia. That's where the Burgess Shale is. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff up in Canada. And Habakabas says, you don't get bored of the same place after 2 years. There's just more and more and more fossils. So we are finding all of these elements of these critters called iguanodontians. Like Hippodraco and Iguana colossus. These two critters are pretty similar to the one that we're finding. It's a bone bed, so there are hundreds, if not thousands, of bones of these animals. Or animals similar to this. There at this site. So it just requires continued excavation. We're pretty darn sure that we've got a brand new species or even a brand new genus of dinosaur similar to these guys, but distinctly different. Potentially the ancestor of these two guys. So the more we can find of that, the better. Pretty excited about that.
At the time of the dinosaur, this was a subtropical delta.
Cactus Jack.
Home of the big plant eaters.
Thank you for the 6 months.
And of the monsters who chased them.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, Cactus Jack, for your continued support.
Chat.
How did you too? How are you doing? It's good to have you here. Let's see, Nightingale Chimp. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that's right. They have Trix, that commercial T-Rex specimen, the one they purchased. Yeah. Yeah. And Jim wants to know, have humans been around long enough to have fossilized bones? Mostly no. There are, I guess, a few fossilized bones, permineralized fossilized bones of early anatomically modern humans from like 200,000 years ago. But those are exceedingly rare. That's back when human beings, before we were very common too. Huh, Mini Pie? Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. And Mini Pie, did you come to say hello to the chat? How are you doing? Here. Let's fire up our cat cam here. Hello. Yeah. Oh, how you doing, Mini Pie? How are you doing? You having a good afternoon so far? You did not appear on stream at all on Wednesday, and now you're the first one here. That's great. We'll see if Sweetie Pie makes any appearances too, and maybe if we're super lucky, Moon Pie will also. But it's good to have you here. Good to have you here, Mini Pie. Isn't it? Yeah. Simply says, looking forward to the field trips, but I will miss the kitty cam. Yeah, we're not going to have any cats out with us in the field. Frankly, it's way too hot. Huh. Yeah. But I'll be back here in my office before you know it. In just about 3 or 4 weeks. I think the setup in place looks so nice. Oh, thank you, Ariaxis. I appreciate that. And you've got a cat cam on your stream too. Very nice, Lenina. That's awesome. What about dogs? I don't expect we'll have any dogs out with us either. There's very, very few vertebrate animals out there. We might occasionally see like a kangaroo rat, or occasionally we'll see a turkey vulture way off in the distance, or some kind of a little wren or something, passerine bird. But it's pretty sparse out there, as you'll see next week. And Princess Kimmy, the one's books are literally all dinosaurs. Very nice. I was also talking to the librarian about you and what you do. Very cool. Thank you, Princess Kimmy. That's cool. It sounds like you're raising those kiddos right. That's awesome. Good for all of you. That's fantastic. Yeah. Anyway, why don't we take a look at something here? Utah dinosaurs. This is an old video here from National Geographic. 15 years ago. But, let's see. Do I know any of these people? Is that Dawn? Might be. Quality on this is not great. But let's take a look at this. On the subject of Utah paleontology. You know what, Mini Pie? I almost forgot. Let's get you some treats, huh? Would you like that? Would you like some treats? Let's get them. What is that? What is that? Oh, good stuff. Hang on, what is this? I haven't seen this before. We might have to take a look at that, too, from Nat Geo. Yeah. Oh, and Salamander, I'm sorry. I had to start early today because there's some other stuff going on this evening. So I didn't want to have an extra short stream. I figured I'd just start an hour early. And Senckenberg Museum in Frankfurt. Oh, very cool, Marika. Slogan is World of Biodiversity. Really neat. Yeah, let's take a look at that real quick. Oh, those are some neat displays that they've got there. Very nice. There is something to be said for these kind of newer styles of museum display, where they've just got like a whole bunch of different organisms to look at like this. That is pretty awesome. Yeah. Anyway. Good stuff. Mini Pie, did you enjoy your treats? I hope so. I hope you did. Don't try and drink out of my water. That's for me. I said don't. No, stop it. Stop it. Yeah.
That we don't.
let's take a look at this. This apparently just came out a month ago. And, we haven't watched it yet. Since it is from National Geographic, I don't think I'll be able to show you subtitles on it. For a number of reasons. But, so apologies for that. But let's just get into that here. Oh. The spy says, I have a weird question. It's a good question, actually. Why do some states have a state dinosaur while others don't? Well, all states do have a state dinosaur in a manner of speaking. In the sense that every state has a state bird, and birds are dinosaurs. So strictly speaking, all states do have a state dinosaur. Some states also have a state fossil. And in addition to that, some states also have a state dinosaur. Let's take a look. List of state fossils here on National Park Service. There we go. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Illinois. Not every state has a state fossil. Some states are not well known for sedimentary rocks. Like, they just don't have a lot of them. And so you don't have a lot of fossils. Hawaii is like that. Hawaii is mostly igneous rock. Volcanic. And then certain states do have fossils, but they've just never designated a state fossil. And then you've got state dinosaurs. A lot of U.S. states don't actually have any dinosaurs named from there. Much of the upper Midwest is like this. Hawaii doesn't have any dinosaur fossils. It's far too new. Yeah, but here is a list of different U.S. states and their state dinosaurs. Some states like Utah have both a state fossil and a state dinosaur, both of which are dinosaurs. So the state dinosaur of Utah is Utahraptor, and their state fossil is Allosaurus right here. Yeah. What do you think, Minnie? What do you think of the Allosaurus? Do you want to say hello to the Allosaurus? Here, take a look. Whoa. Look at that. Pretty cool, right? She's not too impressed. She's seen it too many times. And now you're just blocking the camera, aren't you? But yeah. Marika says there must be a big storage room with all the 3D printed skulls. There's not. There's just my room here. I wish. And were the cats scared the first time they saw those fossils? Minnie Pie isn't normally spooked by stuff like that. But for whatever reason, she didn't like my 3D printed Eohippus, the little dawn horse. Not a fan of that. DM Wing says, where do you get your STLs? From a bunch of different places across the internet. Sketchfab and Thingiverse, from various museum websites, sometimes from the supplementary information in different scientific publications. I've gotten different 3D printable files from all kinds of different spots. Anyway. 3D printing a shipping container to hold all the 3D prints. I wish, Lydia. Yeah. Anywho. And maybe because Eohippus kind of looks like a small dog or a cat if you squint, says Tone Rebellion. I suppose so. If Mini Pie comes back over here, maybe I'll... Because the Eohippus is right up there, I'll take it down and I'll show you her reaction to it. Anyway. Cat Marley's been keeping a close eye on Mini Pie. Really, Janine's mess. Very nice. Cool. Anyway, let's take a look at this. What in the world is that? We did watch some of this, didn't we? We watched this whole thing, like, before I left for the field. Janiku, I thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome to Paleontologizing. Here, I got something better for you. We've watched this a few times before, but it's really, really good. And it has everything to do with Utah dinosaur paleontology. And you'll be seeing some of the people on my crew in this video. You'll also see them next week and for the next few weeks as I'm out doing fieldwork streams. Let's take a look at this.
When the first dinosaur appeared some 230 million years ago, it was a small, speedy predator.
We talked about that last week, remember? Or what was it? On our last stream. On Wednesday, we talked about how the ancestral-most dinosaurs, the earliest dinosaurs were small, two-legged meat-eaters. Critters like Eoraptor are good examples of that. That's what we're talking about here. Ancestrally, all dinosaurs walked on two legs and ate meat, and only later did other forms evolve from that ancestral stock.
The entire dinosaur family, which ruled the Earth for the next 165 million years, was born of this small beast. Early in its evolution, two separate lines of plant-eating dinosaurs appeared. How they evolved from that first carnivore is still an...
And Diziad, Kalwarijski, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. Interesting, the small two-legged ones were the only ones to survive. This is true, MLF, yeah. Yeah, there's something about this body plan. Being small, running on two legs, having a tail for balance, having a flexible neck, shorter arms. There's something really interesting and versatile about that body plan, it seems. And Hakabas says, was it really a carnivore or an omnivore? Well, when we look at our earliest dinosaurs, like Eoraptor, they do have these pointy teeth. Seems to indicate carnivory. There is a chance that they could have eaten some plant material as well. Eoraptor is actually thought to be the earliest sauropodomorph, so its descendants would be herbivores, the big long-necked, four-legged plant eaters, the sauropods. But it seems to be primarily like a carnivore. We've got no real reason to think that this animal was omnivorous. But its descendants must have been omnivorous at some point. But there was a huge end Triassic extinction. Absolutely, DM Wing, yeah. Anyway, and Midgard, Thickgard, you are not a dinosaur. No. We're mammals. You and me and everybody else watching, presumably. If you're trying to figure out what is a dinosaur and what isn't, this is a nice handy chart that lays out the basics. Living things are classified according to their ancestry, you know? According to their familiar relations, according to, like, what they descended from. So in order to be a dinosaur, you have to evolve from that first dinosaur. This is roughly equivalent to Eoraptor right here. Like, Eoraptor? Eoraptor. As far as we know, this is what the first dinosaur looked like that all other dinosaurs evolved from. And so this was a small, two-legged meat-eater. And then you had all kinds of different plant-eating dinosaurs that evolved from that. And other meat-eaters over here, too. But yeah. ancestral dinosaur. Gave rise to all other dinosaurs. It was small, ran on 2 legs, probably ate meat. We as humans are a kind of mammal. We're way over here, so we did not evolve from that first dinosaur ancestor. You got to go way back in time to the base of Amniota, the first like egg-laying land animals, land vertebrates, in order to get to where our family tree links up with that of dinosaurs. You got to go back about 350 million years, give or take. Anyway. Let's continue.
Unsolved mystery. Over 100 million years after this first dinosaur, during the early Cretaceous period, a group of predatory theropods would begin...
An iguanodon.
Rectum Boost, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontology.
This same incredible metamorphosis, from meat-eating to plant-eating. The missing link.
Yes, and this is right near where I'm going to be digging next week. This is the early Cretaceous Cedar Mountain Formation. The lower Yellowcat member of the Cedar Mountain Formation, in fact. Near Green River, Wyoming.
This passage has just been uncovered on a Utah mesa in a mass grave that contains hundreds...
Did I say Wyoming? Green River, Utah. Ugh. There's a Green River, Utah, and there's a Green River, Wyoming. And I'm working by both of them this year. Anyway. Yeah, welcome, Rectum Boost. It's good to have you here. Yeah. I was working near Green River, Wyoming in June. I'll be working kind of near Green River, Wyoming, or Green River, Utah, excuse me, next week. Closer to Moab, Utah, but also near to Green River. Yeah.
Possibly thousands of skeletons. The bones of the newly found species, named Falcarius utahensis, traces the journey from meat-eating predator to lumbering vegetarian.
And this is so cool. Falcarius is such an interesting dinosaur for this reason. It's so scientifically important. So this is going to give us a chance to talk all about Utah dinosaur paleontology, to meet some of the people I'll be working with next week. It's good stuff.
In a barren Utah wasteland, a group of scientists is journeying back in time, 125 million years. What they are uncovering may change what we know about dinosaurs forever.
Oh, and there's the Shade Tarp King himself, Donald DeBlue, Utah's assistant state paleontologist. And here he is erecting a shade tarp over the site. You will see some of these shade tarp. Well, you'll see them all summer. Uncle Don, there you go, Lenita.
And his dedicated crew battle searing 100-degree temperatures as they pick, scrape, and claw into a vast pit of horrors. A dinosaur mass graveyard.
If we're conservative.
So there's Papa Jim. Jim Kirkland, the state paleontologist of Utah. You'll get to know Jim really well, I hope, over the course of next month. And Hugin, the tweet that you were replying to was talking about that idea specifically. That's what that paper was about that Jim was sharing. So, yeah, I've definitely... That's what that conversation was about, Hugin. Yeah. And Regadactylus says, given how things are going, you'll wish it was only 100 degrees. Yeah, it's going to be hotter.
Horrors. A dinosaur mass graveyard.
If we're conservative, we can guess that perhaps there's 1 million bones of this animal within this area. That's a pretty extraordinary sample. Most dinosaurs are only known by a few bones, partial skeleton from one individual. Here we're going to understand a population that we believe was probably killed about the same time.
The Discovery Quest scientist is a veteran dinosaur hunter who has discovered numerous new species, including the most dominant killer of the early Cretaceous period, Utahraptor, and the first therizinosaur ever discovered in North America.
And here you can see some of the very, very expensive, highly technical, very precious field materials that we use. only the finest for us in the field. This is a type of fabric straight from France called, I believe it is called Bourlon in the French. I bring this up because you'll be seeing a lot of this summer too, as we make field jackets for many of the bones that we'll be excavating. Many of you saw this already back in June in Wyoming, but you'll be seeing even more of this. And Real Jessica, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. Here, Jim is cutting some of this up with a knife. Which is one of those things that we do, you know, we've got to get this cut up into strips so we can use it for fossil jackets, for field jackets. I decided to spring for a decent pair of fabric shears this summer. They're going to look a lot like this. And these should cut through that burlap like butter. And I'll donate those to the crew. And it'll save us some time. Make nice cleaner cuts too. It'll be nice. So this is being delivered to Don's place. Because I can't take that on the plane, obviously. But I think it was actually delivered yesterday. So yeah, you'll see those. You'll see this on stream with any luck. And we do not have a new Amazon wishlist going. So the funny thing is, the crew that I'm going to be on next, being led by Jim and Don, they work under the auspices of the Utah Geological Survey, and so they have field gear and everything. There's maybe a few items that we could use here or there, but for the most part, we've been very, very frugal with all of the gear, and a lot of the gear is the same exact stuff that you're going to see in this video. This was produced in 2007. It's 2024 this year. So yeah, some of this gear is like almost 20 years old, and we're still using it. But we've got most of the stuff that we need, for sure. Anyway, let's continue.
Nothronicus. Now, this new find promises to be his biggest ever.
We're very fortunate in this site. We
and
have
thank you,
so
Pyro
much
Kitty. I
skeleton
appreciate
material
that.
From babies to adults, we have every element of the animal represented, except for a few parts of the front of the skull and the front of the jaws. It was an animal that probably reached about 3 feet at the hips, walked on its hind legs, had a particularly long tail, got large forelimbs with large raptorial claws. Basically, even for an animal with 3 foot hip height, this thing could probably palm a basketball with its large hands.
Imagine that, if you were 3 feet tall in the hips and could palm them. But actually, I can kind of do that, huh? And I'm less than 3 feet tall at the hips. Anyway, that's pretty cool.
Elongated neck and a fairly small, elongate head. Particularly interesting in this is it's got very tiny teeth. This thing has probably over 100 teeth, and these tiny teeth were not what you would expect in a typical meat-eating dinosaur. This group of animals is thought to be classically plant-eating animals. This is one that is so primitive it might be in the transition.
Pretty cool.
Falcarius is literally caught in the act of evolving from a predator into a plant eater.
I can
The
relate.
thing that really struck me about this site and the animal once I saw the teeth and the vertebra was that we had a therizinosaur, an animal that's best known from Asia. Only a couple years earlier, a fellow by the name of Doug Wolf and myself, we described the first therizinosaur ever found in North America. And that was pretty exciting. We were charged. And then just a couple years later, we stumble onto this animal.
Which could be its ancestor.
And this animal is much, much older.
Oh, and there's part of camp right there in the background. Yeah, the like garage structures there. So we've got this too in the field. You'll see some of this later on.
And this
Next
animal
week.
is much, much older, perhaps the oldest one in the world. We have the biggest collection of material from this.
So there's I don't know if that's Jim's or Don's big spring bar tent right there. I got one just like that for me this year. Very exciting. It worked out wonderfully in Wyoming. And Hagabas, yeah, you can call those claws. Unguals is the actual scientific term for the bony claw that the keratin sheath would fit over. It's called the ungual. 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 And Just Musu says hello from Germany. Just Musu, hello from the beautiful, sunny San Francisco Bay Area. I hope you're having a good day, or more likely a good evening there in Germany. It's good to have you. I've been enjoying my time here back home for the past week and a half. But I'm really excited to get back out to Utah. We're digging some dinosaurs next week.
Animal, any specimen, anywhere in the world.
It is a find Kirkland was grateful to get. It was a private collector who discovered this valuable dinosaur graveyard on federal property. Land previously surveyed for fossil sites and then passed over.
The site was discovered probably in the very last part of the 20th century by a fellow from Moab out looking for agate by the name of Larry Walker.
This is the hole that I dug into the hill. I worked on my side and excavated the bones with a small tool. So after excavating and bagging these fossils, I would take the pieces home and reconstruct the individual bones.
Walker sold the bones not needed for his skeleton on the black market.
He's also excavating these on federal public land. Bureau of Land Management land. This was very, very illegal what he was doing. It's an interesting story here.
With close to 2/3 of a complete animal, he realized he had a new species and made an important decision.
And then that's when I decided to turn this over to the state of Utah and live with the consequences of my decision.
What?
And they say there's no honor among thieves. This guy was really passionate about fossils. He recognized that he had something really scientifically important. And he realized rather than just, you know, continuing to sell these things on the black market, he said this dinosaur needs to be studied by scientists. So he went and admitted to illegally excavating these from public land. And he served his time. He paid his debt to society. So good for him, honestly, you know? Yeah. And Lagam Course says, tells me he did it for his passion, not just for the money, at least. Agreed. Yeah.
Certainly, there are many more dinosaurs waiting to be discovered.
Alatussi Sub, thank you for the follow.
Many mysteries waiting to be pondered.
And it's true, there are still so many new dinosaurs just waiting to be discovered. What the story kind of tells me is that there are so many more people out there like Mr. Walker from this story. People who are intensely interested in fossils and in the history of life on Earth who don't have an inroad to really be able to, like, contribute in a meaningful way because they don't have academic credentials or they don't know somebody on a field crew or something like that, you know? There's so many people out there whose help we could use. People who are passionate, people who are driven, people who really, really want to contribute something. And we as paleontologists need to do a better job of including those people so they don't end up excavating fossils commercially, selling them on the black market, all that kind of thing, you know? If we only had more resources within vertebrate paleontology, if we had better funding, it would make a lot of these things easier. It'd be easier to include people, it'd be easier to have larger field crews, longer field seasons, to get more work done, and accept people's help, you know? Yeah. And Hemo stick, yes indeed.
It belongs in a museum.
Oh yeah, agreed. Gotta make the nerds be on your side. There you go, Lacancore. Yeah, yeah.
Let's protect our fossils, because if they're removed...
And Alatussi's up, thank you.
Forever.
Thank you for the Prime sub. I really appreciate that. Welcome to the community. It's good to have you here. Thank you for your support. And Automouse says, on the side of the science jocks. Yeah, there you go. Like I always say, there are so many different kinds of people who are involved with paleontology, and we can use all different kinds of people, you know? Whether you're a science jock, or a sports nerd, or I don't know, a goth or a prep or whoever else. Fossil science takes all different kinds of people, and the more different viewpoints that we can kind of bring into the mix here, the better off we'll all be.
And it's therefore likely that we're here today because, by the luck of the draw, dinosaurs who had been dominant over mammals in ordinary times got felled in a mass extinction.
That's true, Emma.
Powers combined.
There you go. Thank you for the 11 months of support. I really appreciate that, MLF. I really do. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. And cool emotes, thank you. Alatussis, I appreciate that. I drew all those. Well, there's a couple that are modified from photographs, but all the other emotes, the ones that are drawn, I drew myself. Yeah. And Queen Dark Lady says, goths can be science nerds, or science jocks, or science preps, or science goths, yeah. I'm a goth and I'm doing my physics PhD right now. Very cool, Queen Dark Lady. Very cool. Good for you, that's awesome. Yeah. You must take... I like that. Yeah. And holy cow, Murph! Thank you for those gift subs. Holy moly. Murph very generously just gifted 10 subs. There's 10 people in the chat who won't have to worry about any ads for the next month. And this Tinamu bird is very excited about that, too. Get out of there, it's gonna blow! Too excited.
Murph is overloading the system with 10 gift subs.
Thank you, Murph. Holy moly. Do I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Good stuff, Murph. Thank you for your continued generosity. That means a lot to me. Well, yeah. Tone Rebellion says, or science punks like Jingmei O'Connor. There you go. Yeah. Paleontology takes all different kinds of people, like we were saying. And we got a hype train going here. Beautiful. Gotta wait after linking your Twitch and Prime. I don't know, Damwing. I'm not sure about that. And contributing to Fieldwork. Thank you for that, Murph. Appreciate that more than you know. Thank you. Anyhow. Throw debris when... Oh no, Trek Nerd. Yeah. And Kawaii Shelley says, is subscribing the best way to support Danny and his work?
Bits can make a wonderful difference.
That's a great way.
The appreciation and understanding of fossil science here on Twitch.
Or gifting bits, too, is a great way to do that. Miss Capri Kel, thank you. For those 1,000 bits. Really appreciate that. Yeah. Given that we've got the 70-30 rev split now, Partner Plus 70-30 rev split, subscribing is like a recurring subscription is probably the best way to support the channel. Especially like a high tier one, a 2 or a 3. But not everybody can afford that kind of thing, obviously. If you're interested in supporting our science outreach endeavors here on Paleontologizing, just helping get the word out helps too, and watching helps. Using the emotes in other channels across Twitch to help other people discover our science content here. All of these things help.
Spared no expense.
An anonymous
Thank you,
user
anonymous
gifted
gifter,
tier
for
1
gifting
sub to
Nightbot.
Nightbot.
I appreciate that, anonymous gifter. You are as generous as you are mysterious, and I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah. And Lady Fiend, I'm so glad you got to see Jim in person. Lady Fiend, I guess, was out in Salt Lake City and saw Jim Kirkland give a talk. She says, Jim's lecture was awesome. He's very funny. He hated the clicker button that was used to move through the slides. That sounds like Jim. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Spreading the word is our job. I appreciate you for that, Trek Nerd. Thank you. Here. Let's continue with this and continue looking at the beautiful Cedar Mountain Formation and the gorgeous fossils that come out of it, and see Jim and Don and everybody
Walker
else.
contacted Kirkland, but even with the coordinates, the experienced Utah State paleontologist was unable to find the elusive site.
When we first came out here, we would never have found this site if Larry hadn't taken us right to the site itself. We got the coordinates.
Well, folks, that's how dinosaurs are.
Victorious. Thank you, thank you. Resubscribe for 6 months at tier 2? Did you just do that right now, Victorious? Thank you. Thank you for that. Phenomenal. Thank you, Victorious. Spectacular. Appreciate that. Good stuff. And Alatussi's got a question. Very interested in paleontology. It's been a dream of mine for a long time now. I'm 17 and going to university in a year. Congratulations, that's awesome. Do you think studying paleontology would be worth it? I'm scared I wouldn't be able to make a living out of it. Oh boy, Can I ask you a question too, Alatussis? You said university, which implies, or at least I'm inferring from that, you might be from like a British Commonwealth country, maybe from the UK. You might have an easier go of it there than you would in the US potentially. It depends. The problem with, well, there are issues that we have in paleontology in the sense that there are far more good paleontologists in the world today than there are good paleontology jobs. Jobs are few and far between. You might have like a job opening that might get hundreds of applicants for like an assistant curator for a museum or something like that. People from all over the world will apply to different jobs. People will move from one country to another just to get a paleo job sometimes. It's rough out there. It really is. I know paleontologists who were very, very lucky to get like an adjunct professor job at a state college or a state school, and then they get paid like $12,000 a year.
Dinosaur to put a swimming pool in your backyard. All you'd have to do is show up for 5 minutes. Whop!
Niscalo, thank you for the 13 months of support. I appreciate that. It's rough, yeah, to have like people who are consistently producing really good research and, you know, bringing in big grants and stuff, and they're getting paid less than minimum wage as a university professor. I myself have been really lucky in being able to kind of carve out my own niche in dinosaur paleontology here on Twitch. This is actually how I make my living. And even though it's a modest living that I make here, I make more money doing this than I've ever made in like an official capacity as a dinosaur paleontologist working for a museum or something like that. So yeah, I would say by all means study paleontology and pursue that if that's your passion. Don't let that discourage you, like, but don't think that you're going to get rich doing it or that it's going to be easy, I guess. That being said, there are people whom I really admire who have other career paths, and they make decent money and everything, and they're still able to contribute to fossil science. They're still able to help fund paleontological fieldwork, or help conduct research, or do laboratory work. You don't have to be a professional paleontologist, or that's the title on your business card is paleontologist, in order to do paleontology. There are lots of people out there who make comfortable livings doing other things, and yet they're still able to do paleontology too, kind of on the side. So yeah, I hope that's helpful advice. I don't want to discourage anybody from trying to become a paleontologist. I just want you to be aware of it's not an easy path to take, for sure. You know? Yeah. Anyway, definitely not a career to get rich with. Absolutely, Evelyn. Yeah. And Wireless Ball Mouse says that's impressive. Thank you. What, that I've been able to make my living here? Yeah. I live pretty frugally, but still, it's been wonderful. Yeah. But yeah, it seems like an amazing hobby option. It definitely can be, Emelith. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. And let's see. Scrolling. And hey, Claire Berg, good to see you here. Welcome. Legumcore says, I'm an artist on the job market. Similar case, a lot of artists, but fewer and fewer jobs. Yeah. What matters is the knowledge you gain from your education will not be a waste of your time. True. No matter what, it's totally okay to have a side job to make ends meet. Paleontology is important knowledge. Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah. Become a paleontologizing ninja? Sure, Andrew Memorax. I don't know what that means, but sure. But yeah. Anyway, I hope that's useful advice for you, Alatussies. Don't let this discourage you. Absolutely, pursue what you're passionate about. Do it as much as you can. But don't be afraid to try and make a living in other ways, too. There are a lot of schools around the world who are educating people in paleontology. Like, there are a lot of aspiring paleontologists in the world. Not all of them are going to get jobs. There just are not enough jobs. It's deeply unfortunate. Jim and I will actually talk about this summer. This is one of the things that I want to talk about with him on stream. Jim says that back in the 1990s when Jurassic Park came out, you know, like 1993, 1994, there was this explosion of dinosaur paleontology jobs. Effectively, overnight, the number of dinosaur paleontology jobs jumped by like 100%. Just because suddenly the public was really, really interested in dinosaurs, even more so than they were before. And different museums started hiring dinosaur paleontologists because they wanted to have dinosaur exhibits and they wanted dinosaur fieldwork going on and stuff like that. So, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Emily says, but don't go into major debt if you don't have a way to get a job that will pay it off. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. And Anonymous says, did the amount of jobs go up with China investing in dig sites? In China, certainly, yeah. Yeah. But not here in the U.S. Yeah. And Lagum, of course, says, kids will always love dinosaurs. It's often their first introduction to science. Absolutely. Yeah. And it is very tough to find a job these days, yeah. Across academia at large, it's tough to find jobs. Anyway. Let's continue.
Went out here, missed it. So we were walking on top of that surface, just out of sight of the quarry, looking for the site and missing it completely. If Larry Walker hadn't taken us right out here and put our nose on these bones, we would never have found this site.
I was investigated, I was indicted, I was convicted of theft of federal property. Consequently, was given a 5-month sentence with 3 years probation and a restitution amount of $15,000.
Walker's decision to turn the site over to Kirkland was personally costly, but if he hadn't come forward, this important discovery would have remained buried in the Utah desert. Lindsay Zano understood.
Yeah, so we'll get to Lindsay in a minute here. But this one says, when I was a kid and first saw Jurassic Park, I thought I wanted to be a paleontologist. As I got older, I realized what I actually wanted to do was work in film and TV. There you go. That's true for a lot of people. When I was a kid and first saw Jurassic Park, I realized I wanted to grow up to be a dinosaur. There's even fewer jobs in that sector than there are for paleontologists, so I eventually decided I wanted to become a paleontologist. Not eventually, I guess. As soon as I realized I couldn't grow up to be a dinosaur. Yeah. Anyhow. It's your all-time favorite movie? It's definitely one of mine, Rankidaculus, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, the new dinosaur that we were talking about on Wednesday and Tuesday as well, Botna Herzogay. This was described and published, well, and excavated and studied by members of Lindsay Zano's laboratory. So there's the lead author right there. Lindsay Zano, here she is in 2006, presumably. She's running a big laboratory in North Carolina now, and they still send field crews out pretty much every year to this part of Utah. And here she is, way back in the day. Now she is a major big shot in dinosaur paleontology.
Understands how important the discovery of Falcarius is. She is a doctoral student at the University of Utah, specializing in therizinosaurs, the group of dinosaurs Falcarius gave rise to.
Therizinosaurs are a truly bizarre group of animals.
You bet,
They've been
Ellen Sissy.
mysterious ever since their first discovery.
Thanks for the
first
question.
discovery of a therizinosaur was made on a joint Russian-Mongolian expedition in the 1950s. What the scientists found there were these giant, blade-like, 3-foot-long claws, and the only animal they could think that could belong to was a giant sea turtle.
They were wrong. 40 years later, the Mongolian desert provided the true answer. The 1993 discovery of a nearly complete therizinosaur gave paleontologists the proof they needed. Skeletal similarities identified this bizarre group's place in the dinosaur family tree. Therizinosaurs evolved from meat-eating theropods.
So yeah, therizinosaurs, I'll show you a better illustration of one. Like Erlikosaurus. There we go, like this. We know these guys were feathery. They're pretty closely related to birds. They are Maniraptoran dinosaurs. And, yeah. They're cool critters. And Jesse Vanita says, when you talked about Pachycephalosaurs recently, it had me thinking, what do you think Carnotaurus uses its horns for? I think for display, primarily. They don't seem to be particularly robust in the sense that, like, I doubt they're fighting with them. They're probably for display, like a lot of different dinosaur features, but yeah. Yeah. And, yeah. Petrodactylus says, sometimes I still think about where my life would have been if I did go fully into paleontology. I do know for sure that in the future, when I have more free time, I would love to do some volunteer work of some kind in service of paleontology. That's awesome. If there's a museum nearby, I'm sure they'd love to have your help. Anyway, good stuff. And regarding therizinosaurs, Lagomcore says, their arms look perfect for big hugs. Maybe. They've also got some pretty gnarly claws, too. These are herbivorous dinosaurs, we think. There used to be a lot of kind of controversy about what in the world they're doing. Are they, like, ripping open termite mounds and eating the tasty goodies inside? Like in this old reconstruction by Wayne Barlow? Well, now we realize that, shoot, these animals had feathers all over their bodies. Well-preserved skulls show really, really simple teeth that seem to be well adapted for eating plants. So we've got a general consensus nowadays that these guys are plant eaters. Yeah. Anyway, that's supposed to be Therizinosaurus there, but it looks so weird, so naked without the feathers. And the hind limbs look really wonky.
As the oldest known Therizinosaur, Falcarius shares many characteristics with its predator cousins.
We now know that Therizinosaurs evolved from a group of dinosaurs known as raptor dinosaurs. Most people are familiar with them through the Velociraptor in the movie Jurassic Park, and they're the only group of dinosaurs that still exist today in modern birds.
The raptor was the smartest, quickest, and most dangerous dinosaur of the Cretaceous period. Alone or in a pack, it was well equipped to deliver.
What's really funny is that these clips are from 2001's When Dinosaurs Roamed America. This series on the Discovery Channel back in the day. I remember this was the coolest thing in the world when I was, 10 years old. Find a trailer for it. Here's a promo. Oh, here we go.
They were the most extraordinary creatures ever to walk the land. Some were huge. Some were terrifying.
I was so excited about this as a kid.
Some were downright bizarre. But they all had one thing in common. They lived in our own backyards.
Yeah, so these guys, the dromaeosaurs in that, they were, the what? I'm sorry. Say that again? One more time? I didn't catch it. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Miggity Marty, 13 months. Thank you for that. What was it again? I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
Paleo salute.
Miggity Marty, thank you for the 13 months of support. It's almost a whole year. I really appreciate that. The dromaeosaurs in this, the Zuni dromaeosaurs. The funny thing about this is they didn't actually turn out to be dromaeosaurs at all. This was so preliminary at the time. Jim can tell you about this. They thought that they had dromaeosaur fossils contemporary with Zuniceratops. It turns out it's like an early Tyrannosaur instead. So the whole like raptor thing was all kind of based on a misunderstanding at the time.
Low. Raptors possess speed, killing claws, and serrated teeth. Falcarius shared their forelimbs and swiftness, and provides the missing link between raptors and the full-blown plant-eating Therizinosaurs. 90 million years ago, Nothronicus appeared. The size of an elephant, it towered over its raptor cousin. It had the claws of a killer, but its small head and long neck belonged to a plant eater. It looked like a half-plucked turkey and walked like a pot-bellied bear.
That's a line from When Dinosaurs Roamed America. We have that as one of our alerts. But yeah, good stuff. An SSN 754. How are you doing? Welcome to Paleontologizing. Is that a hunter-killer submarine? SSN 754? USS Topeka. Interesting. Yeah. Ex-Navy and Submariner. Very cool, SSN. I've always been fascinated by the submarine service, especially in the Second World War, in the Pacific. Really interesting stuff. Yeah. Well, welcome, welcome. It's good to have you here. This partly answers your question, too. What is the go-to website for dinosaurs online? Online or offline? Oddly enough, it's Wikipedia. I remember back in the day when teachers used to say, oh, you know, don't trust Wikipedia for this or that. And that might be still true for certain subjects. But since Wikipedia is like a community-edited resource, all contributions are from volunteers, basically. And dinosaurs are one of those subjects that people are particularly passionate about. The dinosaur part of Wikipedia tends to be very, very comprehensive, very well-sourced, and very up-to-date. There is a dinosaur that was just published, what, 2 days ago? Comptonatus. Already we've got a pretty decent article about it, and a whole cladogram right here. Yeah, excellent stuff. Look up other dinosaurs like Baryonyx, for instance, and you've got this beautiful, well-written article, all of these lovely figures, and then, man, it goes on for a long time, but the references here are really where Wikipedia shines. If you want to get to the original literature, if you want to actually sink your teeth into the scientific publications, Wikipedia is one of the best places to find those in the first place. You know, certainly read the text to get a basic overview of the subject matter, but then get into the original literature here if you really want to dive in. And I think in this article, I show up in here, don't I? Yeah. Anywho, Wikipedia is, it is the best single resource online for learning about dinosaurs that I could recommend to you. Yeah, try to get to the source. Exactly, Happy Nightmares, yeah. Yeah. Anyhow. And I don't pass the notoriety requirements. That's not a clickable link there. Yeah, you can't click this. Not yet, at least. Yeah. There you go, Blue Book. And Indo says, pretty much if someone changes a dinosaur page to be a joke, dinosaur fans will already be prepared to fix it. Absolutely. Yeah. Anywho. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question there, SSN. Yeah. Wikipedia is fantastic. And it's a great place to branch out and find other resources, too. You know, go into the references and read the original literature. Like a scientist does, you know. But yeah. Yeah. Digging in on Wiki now. Very nice. And please do not go make a Wikipedia page for me. Like, I don't want to get blacklisted by Wikipedia, please. Let me get some more publications under my belt and have some other noteworthy accomplishments before I've got a Wikipedia page, you know? But some people who do might be, Jim Kirkland. Yeah. James I. Kirkland. Oh, no photo? But anyway. Jim is going to be joining us next Friday in the field. And look at all these different dinosaurs that he's helped name. He named or worked with others in naming Anamantarch, Cedar pelta, Eohadrosaurus, now Eolambia, Jayawati, Gastonia, Mimura pelta, Ned Colbertia, Utah raptor, Zuniceratops, Urapelta, and Diabloceratops. He also excavated fossils of the Therizinosaur falcarius, which we're looking at here.
Therizinosaurs such as Nothronicus were rare in North America. They were long thought to have migrated from China. Now, its direct lineage has been uncovered in the Utah desert.
With the discovery of animals like falcarius that preserved the primitive forms or the ancestors of these later, more strange-looking animals, were able to determine who they're related to.
Hey! And there's Jim right there. How are you doing, Jim? Welcome, welcome. Really looking forward to seeing you next week. I'll be flying in on Monday morning. Yeah. I know, Jim, the moderators in the channel were a little bit leery because you've got two different usernames. I assume one is your computer and one is your phone.
The Lenina gifted a tier 1 sub to Jim Kirkland.
But thank you, Lenina. I appreciate that.
They have given 337 gift subs in the channel.
Thank you, Lenina. Anyway, it's good to have you here, Jim. We're taking a look at that old documentary from 2007, talking about the Cedar Mountain Formation and just getting jazzed to be out there in the field again.
I have two members of the group. I have some casted material from the primitive Therizinosaur that we've been digging at the Crystal Geyser Quarry, and I have some casted material of Nothronicus, which is a Therizinosaur that's more derived that occurred later in time. And you can see there's a huge size difference here.
Phone versus computers, that makes sense, Jim.
The scapula of Nothronicus is 3 times the size of the more primitive Falcarius.
There's a lot of changes that occur in the skeleton between the primitive forms and the derived forms. Some of those things that we can illustrate are in the shoulder blade. This is the articulation with the humerus.
Salamander says regarding Jim, listen, he's a celebrity. There's motive to impersonate there. Yeah, we got to make sure that we don't have anybody impersonating Jim in the chat. That's why we were just a little confused that there were 2 different usernames, but I think we've got that figured out now, Jim. Cosmological Kev has got a great question. Do we know which dinosaurs migrated like modern herd animals and birds? And would it have been seasonal, or would other factors come into play? We do have some... Well, in the case of Falcarius here... Shoot, Jim could tell you about this. There's so many different individuals at this particular site. Jim was saying potentially over 1 million bones from thousands of individual animals there. Maybe that was like a breeding ground that they would return to every year or something like that. I don't know if it's thought to be a like one single mass mortality event or like a site fidelity thing where the creatures are coming back to the same place year after year and a few of them die every year or something. I don't know. Yeah. But we've got lots of examples of other situations where dinosaurs do seem to have been migrating, probably seasonally. We've got these lovely nesting grounds of Maiasaura preserved in the Two Medicine Formation of Montana. I'll show you. Lovely illustrations in this book here. It's the first book that Jack Horner ever published. Lovely art by Doug Henderson. Yeah. So we've got good evidence that dinosaurs like Maiasaura, these big duck-billed dinosaurs, would have traversed the landscape in these huge herds. Partly because we have their communal nesting grounds, like big nesting rookeries of these animals, basically, where they would all get together and dig these nests out like this, these earthen nests. And Casual Soap Muncher, thanks for the follow. Good to have you here. Yeah. There should be a painting with... Yeah, there you go. The idea is these animals would have returned to the same site year after year, and all would have kind of gathered together to have this big migration there every year. We also have evidence of other dinosaurs moving in big herds together, in the form of like mass mortality events, maybe trying to ford a river or something like that during maybe during a flooding event or that kind of thing. There we go. And Jim says, migrations for large herbivores likely, but hard to prove beyond being gregarious. Yeah. Yeah. I actually just had an idea about this last night, Jim, that I might want to run by you. I've got a potential, like, review paper idea here.
The fertile wheat fields of Alberta, Canada, are scarred by a geological feature known as the Badlands. Embedded in each layer are millions of years of dinosaur history. The region is a magnet to paleontologists like Philip Curry, Assistant Director of the Tyrrell Museum.
It was more than 100 years ago that the first dinosaur skeleton was discovered in this region. And very quickly, Alberta became well known as a place to go to collect good articulated dinosaur skeletons.
And collect them they did. By the turn of the century.
I love that, Jim. Yeah. Yeah. What did the narrator say? Yeah, the fertile wheat fields of Alberta, Canada are scarred?
The fertile wheat fields of Alberta, Canada are scarred by a geological feature known as the Badlands.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jim here. Not scarred, enhanced. That's the only reason this part of the world's worth visiting, for being honest, is the Badlands and the wonderful geology, the wonderful fossils you can get out of that.
Yeah. More than 100 years ago that the first dinosaur skeleton was discovered in this region. And very quickly, Alberta became well known as a place to go to collect good articulated dinosaur skeletons.
And collect them they did. By the turn of the century,
best lands,
tons of specimens had been crated and shipped to museums. Since 1980, Curry and his team have excavated a single bone bed containing hundreds of dinosaurs, all of the same species.
We get these mass death assemblages sometimes.
What happened?
The best interpretation we have right now is that a herd of Centrosaurus was traveling through this particular region 75 million years ago or so, and that these animals tried to cross a river in flood. Now, crossing a river in flood is normally not a problem for any animal as long as they're going as individuals. But as soon as they start moving in herds, and very large herds at that, then they start running into problems.
And Saber Expert says, Danny, have you been to any digs up in Canada? No, but I've been just south of the border in northern Montana. Like walking distance to Canada. Easy walking distance to Canada. In the same, like some of these same areas, like Kennedy Coulee and the Judith River Formation, I think extends up into Canada in places and then kind of descends back below the border. So I've been right up near there in some of these same rock units. Not these ones here, but some of the same rock units that are just above the border up in Canada too. But I've never actually done any field work up in Canada. No.
A herd of wildebeest in Africa is a chilling analogy. Crossing a river by the thousands, they often get tangled in confusion and panic. Many drown. The The geology of the Alberta Badlands reveals this region was once the site of an ancient river. It is here that a herd of centrosaurs attempted a crossing.
Lovely piece of artwork here. Really nice.
Like the wildebeest, some probably panicked, got in each other's way, and drowned. Their bodies washed downstream and collected on the riverbank.
Now we have evidence for what happened next because a lot of the bones in the centrosaurus bone bed are fractured like this. They have these nice spiral fractures on them. And normally you don't get this unless the bone is fresh, and this indicates that these animals were probably trampled. In addition to that, we found large numbers of theropod teeth, and in fact, it's the second most common type of animal in the bone bed. There was a tremendous variety of them. Carnivorous dinosaurs, like modern carnivorous mammals, probably were active carnivores most of the time. But when there was a readily available source of carcasses, they almost certainly turned into scavengers as well. And that's not unusual now as then. The best evidence, though, comes from the bone fragments themselves. And if you look at this one, for example, you can see where a tooth has gone across and sawn the edge of the bone. And in fact, here we can even see little serrations, which are on the back of the tooth and the front of the tooth, which have sheared the flesh off the bone. And when we find tooth marks like these all over these bone fragments, and there's no question at all that these things have been eaten by these large carnivorous dinosaurs.
That was Phil Curry there, Claire. Anywho, like Jim was saying, we've got strong evidence that certain dinosaurs were gregarious. But did they migrate long distances? That's a little bit more difficult to demonstrate. Hoot House Livestream, how are you doing? Welcome to Paleontologizing. Holy cow. Well, check out that bird there. Happy Yorkie, how are you doing? Welcome to Paleontologizing. Hoot House, how was your stream? How are all of our bird friends doing?
Live stream is bringing the beat along with their 112 Raiders.
Really appreciate that, Hoot House. Hope you had a wonderful stream. I hope all of the birds are doing well. Owls and hawks and everybody else. All living dinosaurs, obviously, because birds are the descendants of feathered dinosaurs. Hence, birds are dinosaurs. Anyway, it's great to have you here. Speaking of feathered dinosaurs, Full Metal Croak, thanks for the follow. Welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here. If anybody's here for the very first time, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist, and I'm here on Twitch trying to do some good old-fashioned science outreach. We are enjoying our last stream here in the office before I go back out to the field, where I'm going to be digging dinosaurs in eastern Utah, near the town of Moab, working in the earliest Cretaceous Cedar Mountain Formation. And so we're spending today kind of answering questions about that, getting excited. Yeah, just having a nice casual stream. Meredith Musing, how are you doing? Welcome to Paleontologizing. And since it appears we've got some cool new people here, I think it might be a beautiful opportunity to have a quick little welcome video to introduce some new folks to the channel. How does that sound? So without further ado, I think we might call forth a good friend of ours, somebody we like to call Previously Recorded Danny. And he is currently sneaking up behind me right there, so we'll let him take center stage for the time being. I'll be back in a couple minutes. But new folks, thank you for coming in. Hoot House Livestream, can we get another shout out for you? Thank you again for raiding in. I really appreciate it. And, yeah. Without further ado, Previously Recorded Danny, take it away.
Well, thanks, present day Danny. Well, if you're new here, then welcome to Paleontologizing. You might be wondering to yourself, where's the video games? Well, my name's Danny Anduza, and I'm a paleontologist. I don't really do too much in the way of video games, I guess. I work on dinosaurs. But how does a paleontologist end up on Twitch? Well, I'll tell you. It all started when I moved to Montana right out of high school. In my first week there, I started working in the Paleo Lab at Museum of the Rockies, which at the time was probably the greatest dinosaur museum on the planet. If you've ever seen any of the Jurassic Park movies, then you're more familiar with that institution and with my old boss than you may realize.
You consulted on that movie.
I did consult on all those movies.
And they said that the guy, Alan Grant, was you.
Yes. Yeah, well, fortunately, he didn't get eaten.
It was in that program that Jack Horner built that I learned how to be a dinosaur paleontologist. I learned a lot of that from Jack Horner's last graduate student, this guy, Denver Fowler, who would go on to become curator of the Badlands Dinosaur Museum in North Dakota. Under Denver, I did nearly a decade's worth of fieldwork, digging at hundreds of sites in the Upper Cretaceous, excavating literally hundreds of dinosaurs. Here's just a few highlights. In 2012, I discovered the world's oldest specimen of Chasmosaurus, hopefully soon to be published as a new species. In 2017, we dug up a brand new ankylosaur.
Montana's news leader.
5 paleontologists are excavating what looks to likely be a new species of armored dinosaur.
So we found its head, we found parts of its armor and plates, and so it should be a new species.
I've also been lucky enough to help collect another very important specimen, the world's smallest and youngest Tyrannosaurus rex. And much like my fieldwork, my research is also centered on dinosaurs. Some of that deals with new genera and species, like this guy, Shurarchuncus, a bizarre little theropod from the very end of the age of dinosaurs, who was just published in July of 2020. I've got a few studies in the works right now, some of them focusing on dinosaur biogeography, and some others on behavioral functional morphology, basically looking at bizarre features of dinosaur skeletal anatomy and trying to figure out why those features evolved. And one of my current projects involves Spinosaurs. But I can't really talk about that until it's closer to publication, so don't ask me about it yet. Anyway, let's get back to how I ended up on Twitch. A couple years ago, things were definitely on the decline in Montana, so I packed up and moved back to the West Coast. And I have been so much happier here. I've also realized that I have very little patience for the soul-deadening bureaucracy within academia. So for the time being anyway, I've moved my career in a different direction. And lucky for me, it happens to pay a lot better too. I kind of stumbled my way into a job in early childhood education. I get to make a real difference in kids' lives and help instill a love of nature and a burning curiosity for the world around them. Then coronavirus descended, and the school shut its doors. But I wasn't about to let a global pandemic stop me and my students. We just moved online. 1, 2, 3. I love digging in the dirt with just a pick and brush. Finding fossils is my aim, and so I'm never in a rush, because the treasures that I see are rare and ancient things, like Velociraptor's jumps or Archaeopteryx's wings, and all the kids who wanna see them lining up at our museum. I am a paleontologist. That's who I am, that's who I am, that's who I am. I am a paleontologist. That's who I am, that's who I am, that's who I am. That's who I am, that's who I am, that's who I am. That's who I am, that's who I am, that's who I am. Having made the jump to teaching remotely, it was only a short leap from there to Twitch. I started streaming in May of 2020, and it's been tremendously rewarding. Now, it's my belief that any good scientist should also be a public servant. In my opinion, talking to everyday people about your science is one of the most important things a researcher can do. Twitch is kind of an ideal medium for that. This is my passion, and now I get to share it with you. And what could be cooler than that? It's my intention to continue this mission of education by answering your questions, providing good science content, and working to grow this channel. And if you could help out by continuing to watch, or if you can afford it by subscribing, I would be deeply grateful. So, for my regular viewers, thank you for sitting through that again. And for everybody who's new, welcome. We've got a fantastic little community going here, and we'd be really happy if you'd join us. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up and get back into it. So, present day Danny, back to you.
Well, thank you very much, previously recorded Danny, and thank you even more to Hoot House Livestream for that phenomenal raid. I really appreciate it. It's great to have you here. If anybody's not yet following Hoot House Livestream, by the way, you are missing out. You can see live dinosaurs do their thing. 24/7, basically. Owls bringing food deliveries to their babies in the nest box. Red-tailed hawks feeding their young. Very cool. Okragar, thank you for the 100 bits. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Good stuff. So anyway, Hoot House, really, really cool stream. Check him out. Give him a follow. But yeah. And that one guy, I guess I did, huh? But yeah. And recordings, dinosaur talks on cassette. Oh, cool, Jim.
So much respect to you and your passion. What a great video.
Thank you, Full Metal Croak. I appreciate the kind words and the 100 bits. Thank you for that. Thank you, thank you. Oh, and I have heard of these, Jim, but I've never actually listened to them. Dinosaur Tracks music began as a paleontology-related cable access TV talk show that Don Glut co-produced and hosted in 1987. The show's format had one paleontologist guest and one or more media guests per episode, with some show and tell. Very cool. Man, this is kind of like what I do here on Twitch, in a way. Very cool. Oh, man. Famous paleontologist Ned Colbert, Elmer Riggs, and Charlie Sternberg talked about their discoveries and lives. That is super cool. Oh, pretty neat. Yeah. I have these on cassette. I might need to get these on CD and then yeah.
Allosaurus, ancient predecessor of the Tyrannosaurus, mighty hunter of the Jurassic Age.
Wempelkop, thank you for the 5 months of support. Thank you for the Prime there. I really appreciate that. Good stuff. Yeah. Excellent. Robert Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire, Keftang. Indeed. But yeah. Where do I get these? Compact discs. Oh, okay, neat. Shipping. I might have to get these. Very cool. Huh. But yeah, good stuff. Let's return to our video here and continue talking about the Cedar Mountain Formation,
which is pointing downward in this animal. In some of the...
Yeah, so Lindsay Zan was talking about Arthrodonticus. Let's get back to the fieldwork portion of it, shall we?
The clues lie in the million bones buried deep within these rocks. But can they answer all the questions about these mass deaths? What caused Valkyrius to die in these huge numbers? What attracted them to this particular...
And look at that shade tarp palace. Holy cow. Must have been extraordinarily hot that summer. I think this might be the Crystal Geyser Quarry.
Particular place. These are just some of the questions Kirkland's team hopes to answer as they search for clues in this dinosaur graveyard. Don DeBlue manages the removal of these prehistoric remains.
So you'll be meeting Don next week if you haven't yet, chat. Hopefully on Wednesday I can do my first stream in the field.
Well, here in the dig site we have about a meter of
There's Uncle Don.
Sediment, and the bones are distributed pretty evenly throughout that meter. And we use our little picks to just kind of push gently through the matrix until we hit one of the little nodules. You can feel that. Then take the brush.
The extinction of dinosaurs is the absolute prerequisite to the evolution of large mammals and to our own existence, for that matter.
SL Watermelon, thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome.
Sweep that away, put it into our bucket.
Many of Falcarius's bones are encased in minerals.
This lightish brown color is the carbonate nodule. This darker brown and black is actually the bone sticking out of the nodule. Occasionally we hit some nice little things that don't have a lot of nodule around them. In this case, there's a beautiful little toe bone here of a juvenile animal.
Because this Falcarius toe bone is not encrusted in rock, it is quite fragile. Glue is used to help harden it.
A few drops of that on there.
Layer by layer, every bone fragment from this massive graveyard becomes a new piece of evidence.
So some of the same gear that you see in the quarry right here is stuff that we're still using. I wouldn't be shocked if we still have some of those same clipboards. These are still the same, like, bits of conduit for the shade
small
tarps.
nodules we can collect, just wrap them up in toilet paper.
It's probably one of the
Some
same
larger
scoops that we
things
use.
We'll use to
Probably one of the same
medical
brushes.
bandage to make a little gypsona jacket around it.
Back at the lab, these fossils become the clues to solving the mysteries surrounding the life and death of Falcarius.
Voila. The inside of the grid should be the meter line. So if it's under the metal, it's just outside the grid.
Just outside the grid, then?
Using a grid, Kirkland's team records each
see some of
bone on a
this.
site map. This places each fossil in its unique position. An essential
Sure,
tool
that's the
in
same
sorting
plumb bob that we
clues
still have.
in a graveyard that may contain 1 million fossilized fragments.
All right. See that little nodule? Right down there.
It is time consuming and it's not for everybody. It's very tedious work.
Especially the mapping.
Nothing is that, neither is that.
The neat thing is as I push this needle through and I hit something, that's never been seen by anybody before. It's been buried here for 125 million years. It's just another piece of the puzzle to help put this animal together, our knowledge of what it was like. So really, I think it's the discovery that keeps you going.
These graveyard bones hold many secrets, but they aren't the entire story. To understand why all these animals died here, and why these bones were preserved when most of this time period was not, it's necessary to look beyond the fossils. The Suarez twins from Temple University found evidence of a spring by looking at the rocks.
It's like telling a story. It's, using the rocks to tell a story. So not only are the bones important, but the rocks that the bones are found in are important. That's the reason why we stay looking at the rocks. We look at it. Dinosaur bones are really pretty. Oh, they're very pretty. And we love them. We love them a lot. But the rocks are also, they tell the story, a part of the story that sometimes the bones can't always tell us.
I feel like the documentary producers here were really playing up the whole twins angle.
So the top
It is-
layer
it is
that we
amusing
saw
how
was
they
the
kind of put this
initial
together.
piece of evidence that pointed us toward the spring deposits, and then
It's a dinosaur.
Belly Squid, thank you for the follow and welcome to Paleontologizing. Good to have you
and
here.
the other deposits that we found were the rocks that were at the base of the quarry, and these rocks have very
And there you go,
similar
Rickedaculus,
aspects
yeah.
to the modern spring deposits that we see at the Crystal Geyser. This piece here is a young modern deposit. The radial structure that you see of the crystals moving away from the center is also seen in pieces of this rock.
One of the theories that's been proposed.
So this is where we actually went here last year for an afternoon to go swimming in the Green River that is the actual geyser at Crystal Geyser, if I'm not mistaken.
For why the Crystal Geyser dinosaur quarry was preserved, and one that I kind of like myself, is that it was preserved by a coating of carbonates laid down by a spring deposit. I like to tell people it was a scab on the erosional surface that preserved the bones in place.
The modern Crystal Geyser spring is coincidentally located near the Falcarius gravesite. It vividly demonstrates this theory.
These are the kind of minerals that we see preserving the bones, calcium carbonate encrusting the bone.
Get it right, narrator.
What we have here are somewhat older spring deposits on the order of thousands of years that have been exposed by the Green River, cutting through them. Some of the carbonates that were studied by the Suarez sisters have some similar features, and it's one of the lines of evidence they've used to suggest that spring deposition may be an important part of why this quarry was preserved where it was.
Pretty cool.
The slide that I have on
Pretty
the
cool.
screen right now is approximately 125 million years old. These are rocks that we found at the Crystal Geyser dinosaur quarry. And then the slide that I have on right now is a piece of the modern Crystal Geyser, probably no older than 1,000 years old. So when you look at the different crystal structures, they look pretty similar, and that's how we've been able to put together a little bit of evidence to determine that the Crystal Geyser dinosaur quarry was deposited either in or near a spring.
The same deposits that preserve the bones in the dinosaur graveyard must now be carefully removed in the lab.
When we discover a fossil in the field, the first step is to make a plaster jacket to protect the fossil so that we can bring it back to the lab. Once it's at the lab, we saw apart the jacket, revealing the fossils entombed within the rock. And then we have preparators who spent hundreds of hours carefully detailing, removing rock, or what we call the matrix. And we slowly chip away the rock, revealing the bone within it.
Tom Millithan is chipping away on the Falcarius fossils at the Utah Geological Survey labs.
The first thing we do is we take the bottom of the field cast off, and then we
Field
start
jacket.
working down to the matrix till we start hitting bone. You can see right here, I'm starting to hit bone.
The rock or mineral which surrounds the bone is known as the matrix. This material must be painstakingly removed using dental picks and small drills.
And when the matrix is too hard to get off, we have to use another solution. We acid etch it. This is the portion that we're trying to acid etch off to get the matrix off and get down to the bone. And you can see here where we've actually, the acid has etched it down, and you can start seeing the bone, and we can start working on it.
After carefully cleaning the bones, scientists are able to view them in their entirety.
Over 95% of fossils that are collected in the field end up in the museum collections out of...
And this must be the old collection space at NHMU, the Natural History Museum of Utah. Space does not look like this anymore. It's a lot larger and, frankly, prettier than this. I never got to visit the old collection space, but I've been in the new one several times.
Public view. This is where scientists who are doing research on animals come to compare the bones they've found in the field to bones of known dinosaurs and other animals that we keep in museum collections. For instance, when we find the claws of Falcarius, we might come to collections and compare them to other meat-eating dinosaur claws that we know of, such as this thumb claw from Allosaurus, or...
Allosaurus, right here, by the way. Right here in the office. 3D printed Allosaurus.
a claw from one of its closer relatives, one of the raptor-like dinosaurs.
Comparing the...
Yeah, cool stuff. And Alatusi says, do you think Europe still has fossil potential? Absolutely, yeah. I know there's some fossilized shark teeth and shells on the beaches in Belgium. But I'm not sure if major fossils still get dug up as we speak. They do, yeah. There are different parts of the UK where there are dinosaurs being found. The Isle of Wight is a particular hotspot. And like you were saying, Portugal, Spain, and France. Portugal and Spain in particular, there are a ton of late Jurassic dinosaur fossils, and some early Cretaceous dinosaur fossils as well, being found in Portugal and Spain. That's kind of a new hotspot for dinosaur paleontology, is the Iberian Peninsula. Yeah. Anywho. And Tanessa, hey, good to have you here. Welcome, welcome. Relatively large fossil of a shell hiking out in the Dolomites in Italy. Very cool, Sick Boy. That's awesome. Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Cosmological Kev says, do you think that some dinosaurs would have had a graveyard like modern elephants? I'm not sure. Do elephants... I thought that was kind of a myth, the idea that they go to the same place to die that their predecessors did. Yeah. We definitely do have mass death assemblages of dinosaurs, so places where a bunch of dinosaurs all died and got preserved in the same place. But it's, trying to ascribe behavior to that is much more difficult, you know? Trying to say, oh, well, these animals all congregated here because they knew they were going to die. It's like, how in the world would you prove that, you know? How would you formulate a testable hypothesis there? Yeah. And Gurum says, what sort of paleontology possibly exists in Antarctica? Oh boy, a lot. Here, let me show you a clip. We've got a number of dinosaurs from Antarctica now. They started getting dug up in like the late 80s. But yeah, check this out.
It's the coldest, windiest place on Earth. But Antarctica's wilderness was not always frozen.
Nope. There used to be basically no ice on Earth during certain times of Earth history.
Discover an
certain parts of the Age of Dinosaurs.
Of midnight suns, night hunters and river monsters. A prehistoric kingdom lost to time and ice. Join a new generation of scientists.
This is a dream of mine to be able to do field work in Antarctica.
To uncover a hidden dinosaur story. A cinematic journey from today's frozen desert to a lush South Polar world of giants. Welcome to the dinosaur continent of Gondwana. Welcome to Antarctica.
Pretty cool stuff. So, one of my crewmates last month in Wyoming, Matt Lamana, has done a bunch of field work in Antarctica, and might be doing the same thing again sometime soon. Antarctica is a really exciting place because it's kind of at this crossroads among the southern continents, where it provided a land bridge between Australia and South America. Here. This will work. So South America, Africa, Madagascar and India over here, and then Antarctica and Australia. You used to be able to walk from Australia across Antarctica into Africa and South America. Obviously, you can't do that anymore. The continents have shifted. But we know that during the late Jurassic period, this is roughly what the arrangement of the continents was. And so Antarctica is really important because you get these cool dinosaur faunas that you get throughout the southern hemisphere. These Gondwanan continents. And Antarctica is kind of smack dab there in the middle. So you might see kind of like a hodgepodge of different dinosaur faunas from different parts of Gondwana down here. We're still kind of figuring that out. There's not been very many dinosaur fossils from Antarctica so far, but we've got a few, which is tantalizing. Yeah. And buried dead cat. Oh, that's what it was, salamander. Okay, so baby elephants. Oh, that is heartbreaking. Yeah. And Groom, there is, so during Southern Hemisphere summer, which is like, what, November through February? Something like that? There's less ice on the surface in certain parts of Antarctica. And you can find really cool fossils there, but it's hard work. Like you saw there in the trailer.
Of scientists.
There we go. Using rock saws and hammers like that. The rock is extremely tough there in certain places. So Matt Lamana, who's done a lot of work there, was telling us about, you know, using the big geopaleo picks that we use in the field. Using these and just getting maybe like after a half hour of work, maybe you've dug through a few centimeters of rock with this. Yeah. So it's not easy work. But man, I'd love to try it. Holy cow. Yeah. I got to want to think about this. No. But yeah. And Ricky WSF says, do we have roughly the same percentage of land today than, say, 200 million years ago? There's less land today than, well, I don't know. 200 million years ago, I think sea levels were... Well, no, I guess they're about the same as today. Something like that. Maybe sea levels were slightly lower than today. Or slightly higher than today. There is, I guess, more... There probably is more land today. More dry land in certain areas. Just because sea levels today are so low. So much of Earth's water is locked up in glaciers and... Yeah. So there might have been a little bit more land back then, but then also you've got to think about orogeny, mountain building, all kinds of stuff like that. Stuff that pushes new crust up into the air. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head whether there was more land surface area back then than there would be today. I'm guessing it's a very similar percentage. But sea levels are definitely lower today than they have been at other times in Earth history. When the climate's been warmer, sea levels rise because ice melts. Yeah. For now, at least, says Regadactylus, yeah. We'll see. If things continue along their current trajectory, sea levels are gonna be rising like crazy. Yeah.
You're not doing so badly yourself for a paleontologist.
Well, thank you, New Shine. I appreciate the follow and the kind words. Thank you, thank you. Anyhow, let's return to our documentary here. Yeah.
The bones of Falcarius to other animals is the first step in a lengthy investigation. Every bone is carefully examined for clues. Within the fossils of this primitive Therizinosaur, the transition from predator to plant eater is waiting to be found. Bone by bone, Falcarius reveals its precious secrets. Some of the answers to the mysteries surrounding Falcarius can be found in the time it was living. During the early Cretaceous era, temperatures were rising, and so were sea levels. It was a period of remarkable change.
It wasn't until the early Cretaceous that one group of carnivores evolved.
This must be the early, the old, display area of the Natural History Museum of Utah. Now there's a beautiful facility there, much more modern, much larger. Perfect for like school field trips and stuff. Oh man, to be a kid in Utah nowadays, get to visit that museum. Holy cow. It's got to be magical. I've streamed from there a couple of times, I think. But it looks a lot different from that.
Evolved to be probably, as far as we can tell today, herbivores. Falcarius, though, is a true missing link. Here we have an animal that allows us to tell the story of how we went from a velociraptor-type predator to something that was a large-bodied, full-blown plant eater. Now, another interesting thing is going on in the world at this time. Flowering plants are appearing for the first time and really starting to take over. And it may be that this spread of these new plants helped to lead to the evolution of Falcarius, this predator turned herbivore.
The discovery of Falcarius provides a unique opportunity to see what features this early Therizinosaur preserved from its meat-eating ancestors.
Anyway, the whole reason that we're watching this is because we're encountering some people that you will see next week. People like Jim right here. But also, these are the same rocks that we're going to be digging in, or at least the same geological formation. So, Utah is the best place in the U.S., the best state in the U.S. for finding dinosaurs, honestly. So many different dinosaur communities, at least 27 different sequential fauna levels. Grimmer, thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. Here in the early Cretaceous, you've got the Cedar Mountain Formation. Right here. That comprises like half of the Cretaceous period. It's nuts. I don't know why this is just one formation. It should honestly get broken up into several different ones. But I'll be digging at the very bottom of the Cedar Mountain Formation, just above the contact with the Morrison Formation, the transition from Jurassic to Cretaceous. Now, Falcarius, the dinosaur from this documentary, is from just above that, in the lower yellow cat. We'll be digging in the lowest lower yellow cat. So a time a little bit before Falcarius. It turns out, well, I guess we'll hear from Jim what the current consensus is on this, or what the current line of thinking is, but there are several faunas within the lower yellow cat member of the Cedar Mountain. I don't know how many, but we can ask Jim next week. But yeah. And is there a debate within the scene that the site should be broken? I'm not sure I understand your question, Crimson Carnotaurus. Could you rephrase? And Hemostick says there's some older exposed strata in Utah, right? I remember some about the really widespread trilobite species from there? Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm saying earliest Cretaceous age. So like from the very beginning of the Cretaceous period. Again, Jim can tell you about this, but we might actually have it extend down into the Berriasian. The very first stage of the Cretaceous. But there are rocks in Utah that are a billion years old or older. And you've got beautiful trilobites from other parts of Utah from like the Cambrian, from like 500 million years ago. Oh yeah. When I say oldest rocks, I mean oldest within the Cretaceous period. Oldest Cretaceous rocks in Utah. Maybe the oldest Cretaceous rocks in North America. And Jim says 6 to 7 faunas and the yellow cat to the poison strip. Sent you an update with 33 dinosaur faunas. Holy cow. I'll need to bookmark that, Jim. That's awesome. Pepperknot, thank you for the follow. Here. Let's see if I've got that here in my email. Let's see. Get through these attachments. Oh, cool. Okay, there's that. With the impacts, but I'm trying to find the one with... We know Utah preserves the most complete lower Cretaceous dinosaur record in the world, but why? This is great, Jim. Oh, man. Very cool. Oh man, I can't wait to hear more about this in person. And yeah, good stuff. The oldest dinosaur bone beds in the Cretaceous period of the northern hemisphere, if not the world. That's awesome, Jim. Yeah. And Crimson Carnotaurus, as you mentioned, that the time covered in that formation, in the Cedar Mountain Formation, is fairly big. Oh, yeah. And you believe it should be broken down. The paleontology scene, is it under debate that that should be the case? That's a good question. That's a good question. Jim, is it controversial to this idea of like breaking up the Cedar Mountain Formation, taking some of those different members, you know, upper and lower yellow cat, poison strip, etc., raising them to the level of formation? Would that be an uphill fight, I wonder? Yeah. And you're going to visit Dinosaur Ridge in September. Very cool, Pyro Kitty. That's awesome. Dinosaur Ridge in Colorado. Neat stuff. Let me get rid of some of these tabs. Yeah. Anyhow. And Cosmological Kev says, if allowed, would Russia, being so large and unexplored, be the next best paleontological place to search? There are a bunch of dinosaur fossils from Russia, and that is, especially up in Siberia, there's some good exposures of stuff, yielding dinosaurs like Kulindodromius. There is potential for, for some really cool dinosaur finds up there, for sure. Yeah. And Jim says, with regards to breaking up the Cedar Mountain Formation, I'll let the next generation do it, but it is doable. I think it might make sense, because holy cow, it's, you know, it's like 40 million years in there. You know, from the very base of the Cretaceous up into the Cenomanian stage. That's crazy. It's more than 40 million years in there. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
The dinosaurs that we know of have femurs that are longer than the lower legs. This is a sign of an animal that's moving much more slowly. In addition, this animal still has a pretty typical theropod three-toed foot with 3 functional toes, but the little dew claw here in later therizinosaurs becomes larger and actually becomes a weight-supporting toe once again.
What makes Falcarius?
Yeah. That's really neat. The hallux, so like the dew claw that in most dinosaurs is vestigial, in most theropods at least. In therizinosaurs, it becomes more robust, descends down, actually becomes a weight-bearing element, like Jim was saying. Really cool. Really, really cool animal.
Unique in the fossil world is that now, for the first time, scientists have a missing link. A step in the evolutionary transformation from a predatory raptor to a plant-eating therizinosaur.
One of the things we know you have to do to build a therizinosaur is to take a velociraptor-like animal and give it a huge gut and shrink its legs down, add a couple extra toes, and lengthen its neck and shrink its head and give it small leaf-shaped teeth instead of those sharp blade-like teeth like a predatory dinosaur would have. Previously, we had no real information on how this transition was happening. With the discovery of Falcarius, we're able to take an in-depth look, sort of a time slice in evolution, and take a close look at what areas of the skeleton are changing.
Really, really nice illustration by Michael Skrupnik there. What a cool, weird animal. Gotta love Falcarius.
Look at the hip region here. We see some features that are very important in the therizinosaurs that are developed much more so later. They begin to flare the hip out laterally, pull the bones at the base of the hips back, basically creating a large basket to support the digestive system that a plant-eating animal needs. And this has already begun to do this, and there's really not much reason you would start expanding your abdominal cavity unless you were going to process something that was more difficult to digest.
And Salamander, yeah. So when Lindsay was saying Velociraptor-like, I think she does just mean Maniraptoran. Yeah. Yeah, or Deinonychosaur-like. Yeah.
In a unique twist of evolution, Falcarius represents a meat-eater forsaking its bloodthirsty ancestry as it becomes a vegetarian.
Yeah,
well, if we take a look at this meat-eating dinosaur that would have been a close relative of Falcarius, you can see it has sharp blade-like teeth that would be
Who is that
serrated
supposed
like
to
a
be?
knife. If we look at the teeth of Falcarius, you notice they're smaller, more densely packed. They're not serrated the same way that the meat-eating teeth were, and they're leaf-shaped, so they're much better suited for eating plants.
Oh, that's Suski Tyrannus.
The
Oh,
enlarged
okay.
gut.
So, yeah. This skull right here is Suski Tyrannus. Which I believe that's the dromaeosaur from when dinosaurs roamed America, right? Turned out to be a tyrannosauroid. Okay, cool. Parts of it, big parts of it do look like they're sculpted. But this looks legit down here. Yeah, nice. Thank you, Jim.
They're not serrated the same way that the meat-eating teeth were, and they're leaf-shaped, so they're much better suited for eating plants.
Emelith wants to know, did they all have the constantly replacing teeth? Yeah. Yeah, so mammals, we are weird in this regard. Most animals that have teeth have got that kind of like constant replacement thing going on, where like they'll just have new teeth constantly coming in and pushing the old teeth out. We as mammals are bizarre in that we do not have that. Most toothed critters do. Most, at least within tetrapods. All of the sauropsids have that. Synapsids don't generally.
The enlarged gut and smaller teeth were directly related to the change in diet that occurred with Falcarius. Other more subtle...
Ooh, and DM Wing says, presumably having only 2 sets of teeth saves energy? That's not actually the reason why we've got just those 2 sets of teeth as mammals. We can take a brief detour and talk about that, because it's important and interesting, and it's, I think, relevant to everybody's daily lives here. Here, I'll find you a clip. There we go. This is from a wonderful series called Your Inner Fish with Neil Shubin. And here, let's talk a little bit about teeth and what's up with them. Why mammals have a different strategy than reptiles in terms of their teeth. Reptiles and pretty much every other toothed animal.
Got a mouth of molars. Couldn't eat the apple. Mouth of incisors. I couldn't eat the whatever you call this. It's good, by the way. Guava roll. Guava roll. Thank you for having molars, because I'm glad I could do this one.
You know, but the humble tooth is very important for our lives today. Every time you bite into an apple, right, that is a very complex behavior. Our front of our teeth, the incisors, bite into that apple, and they do so in almost a perfect way. The teeth occlude in a very fixed pattern, a very precise pattern. We take for granted how we rely on precise tooth-to-tooth occlusion, except when things go wrong, except when we crack a tooth or something like that.
Yep. So having constantly replacing teeth is really nice.
Sure, everything is where
but you're sacrificing that precise occlusion.
And there's nothing in here that isn't supposed to be.
Wonderfully complex teeth might allow us to have a great bite, but it's come at a price.
You know, one of the things that's interesting to think about is, you know, the consequences of the reptile-mammal transition are the fact that we need dentists. It's really
Thank you.
You're right. Thanks. Thank you, South African fossils.
Thank you very much.
I mean, reptiles don't need dentists, right? Because they're producing lots of teeth throughout their lives. You know, boom, 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 and they produce them, they're out of there.
Yep.
Most reptiles, like the snake, grow multiple sets of teeth in their lifetime. There's a constant stream of new teeth erupting in their mouths. But after we lose our baby teeth, we're left with one adult set to last us the rest of our lives.
Yep.
This may not seem like the best of strategies.
You are correct. Yeah, we're not reptile descended, and that's my only real quarrel with this series is kind of that old canard of like, oh, mammal like reptiles, and you know, mammals evolved from reptiles. Mammals did not evolve from reptiles. Mammals and reptiles were separate from the very start. of amniota. And so that's like a really outdated, way of thinking about it that I really wish they had not done that in this series because it is confusing. But reptiles did not evolve from mammals.
But there is a plus side. This may not seem like the best of strategies, but there is a plus side.
Yeah.
It allows us to develop our very precise bite.
Yep.
If you're continually replacing your teeth, right? I mean, I think it would be hard to get that, micron scale occlusion, which is so really important to us.
You're right. When we lose a tooth, the changes that occur to compensate for the loss of that tooth and the space that it held has a profound effect on our occlusions.
The reason our rows of teeth match up so precisely is that our ancestors reduced the number of sets that they produced. We've made up for that by strengthening our teeth with extra roots and thick enamel to help them last a lifetime, along with a little help from our dentists.
That's neat. I'll have to take a better look when I go to the
Go to the
zoo
zoo.
with my kids. The reptile house is not my favorite place to
Yeah,
get,
it's
so
not
I would like them in the form you find them.
Dead?
Yeah, dead 200 million years.
Anywho, I hope that makes sense. And do apes also have 2 sets of teeth? You bet, Dr. Morbius. Yeah, most mammals do. There's a few mammals that have got what we call marching molars. So, like certain afrotheres have that. Manatees, elephants, where they'll get, I think it's 6 different sets of molars throughout their lives. But that's like a weird special thing that they've evolved. Most mammals, it's just 2 sets of teeth. You get your milk teeth, and then you get your adult teeth. Yeah. There you go, DM Wing. Yeah, you bet. And elephants cheat the mammal system. There you go, Charlie's Dragon. And you know what? Good for them. What about wisdom teeth? So those are for when we used to have a longer jaw. So there'd be more, I guess more alveoli, more spots for teeth to grow. And I think it's a consequence of starting to walk upright, like our ancestors did a few million years ago. Our jaws shortened as a result of that, and we didn't have as many slots for teeth in our jaws. And so, yeah, you have to have those removed. It's another one of those wonderful imperfections kind of inherent to the human body. At least for most of you, I was born without wisdom teeth. Never had them. It's a cool mutation, I guess, that I happen to carry. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. And how rare is that, says Juno Sawyer. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have numbers on that. And Dinosaur Dave, is that like in the David Bowie song? No, I'm not saying I'm more highly evolved than it. That term is like scientifically meaningless. Anywho, yeah. And Dr. Morbius says, I'd rather have many sets of teeth. We eat cooked food, so a precise bite seems less important. Yeah, well, that's something that our early ancestors, way back at the base of amniota, right here, right pretty much as soon as tetrapods start laying eggs on land, as soon as they develop the amniotic egg, you have this split between synapsids, mammals, and sauropsids, reptiles. And along the synapsid line, as we get closer and closer to true mammals, there tends to be much more like focus on the teeth. More quality over quantity. Fewer sets of teeth that are harder and more complex, and they evolve really quickly. There's just like, that's the business end of the animal, is the teeth in mammals. Less so in reptiles. Yeah. Anywho. But yeah. There you go, elation effect. And Charlie's Dragon, I thought the cooking food thing was kind of immaterial to the whole wisdom teeth thing, because isn't it more a question of space than it is anything else, where there's just not enough space in a typical human jaw to have erupted wisdom teeth? It was like, the whole tooth development part of humans hasn't really caught up to the whole jaw shortness thing. You know, it's like that part of our body kind of evolved. It changed more rapidly than the whole tooth dealing. Anyway, but 25% of people are missing at least one wisdom tooth. Interesting, Jonas Sawyer. Interesting. Anyway, let's continue.
Changes were just beginning.
And then, as a really exciting feature, we see this specialized elongate neck. Now, as you look at this neck, it looks heavy, but the bones are full of air sacs, and really none of the bone in this neck is more than 2 millimeters thick. If you filled the dry neck bones with helium, they'd probably float. Now, for Falcarius, we had hundreds, thousands of bones, all mixed up in the quarry. And when we describe an animal, we have to pick one bone to make the type specimen, to define the species on. And for the case of Falcarius, we picked a bone that had lots of different features to it. You want something that has a lot of parts you can describe. And for this purpose, we used the brain case. Now, the very distinctive feature for Falcarius that we don't see in any other dinosaur are these very large excavations all around the base of the brain case that actually overlap smaller little excavations. This is where air sacs, such as we see around the brain case of birds, are coming in and surrounding this part of the skull. This might have been used for cooling, it might have been for lightening the head. We don't know why in this particular animal, but they're very distinctive.
These air sacs weren't the only feature Falcarius had in common with birds. It probably had feathers. Modern evidence shows that small predatory dinosaurs and modern birds have over 100 similar bony features. Dramatic.
Yep. Well, shoot, type in the turkey commands to see some of those different features. And jaw doesn't get as big because we didn't need as much muscle to chew tough food, hence smaller jaw. I want to say it happened much like before the advent of cooking, though, Charlie's Dragon. I could be wrong, but again, not a paleoanthropologist here. But yeah.
Genetic evidence was provided with the 1995 discovery of a dinosaur ecosystem in Liaoning, China. This site, which was buried by volcanic ash, contains many pristine fossils with primitive feathers.
This is a game changer.
One of the other bizarre features of therizinosaurs is they were probably covered in feathers, not the flight-like feathers that you think of in modern birds, but the more downy feathers that you think of sort of keeping a duck warm, sort of what we call proto-feathers. We know this because the ancestors of therizinosaurs were feathered, and we know many of their descendants were. We also have a feathered therizinosaur that's from China, where they have a dramatic assemblage of feathered dinosaurs in a really remarkably preserved ecosystem.
Yep.
Feathers, although you might think, evolved.
So the feathered therizinosaur, by the way, is Bapiosaurus. And that's a pretty good reconstruction right there.
Because if they're removed, America loses them forever.
Master Nagel, thank you so much for the Prime. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for your support. I appreciate that. That's a pretty lovely reconstruction too. I like that a lot. But yeah, it's a cool critter, Bapiosaurus, and it was the first of the feathered therizinosaurs that we had. I've always liked this reconstruction too, of these guys just kind of barreling their way through this early Cretaceous Chinese forest, just knocking everybody else over. One little guy. But yeah, that's the feathered therizinosaur that
That's
Lydia's
from
talking about.
China, where they have a dramatic assemblage of feathered dinosaurs in a really remarkably preserved ecosystem. Feathers, although you might think evolved specifically for flight, obviously are serving other purposes in feathered dinosaurs. Because we have such a vast diversity of feathered dinosaurs, it leads us to the question, what other purposes are feathers evolved for? Some of the things that come to mind are color, camouflage, for attracting mates, possibly for thermoregulation or staying warm.
In addition to looking at the specific changes going on with Falcarius's skeleton, understanding what other animals it lived with helps complete the picture of its environment.
Of the more than 1,000 bones cataloged so far from the Crystal Geyser Quarry, more than 99% of them pertain to Falcarius, our new dinosaur. But we do have a few bones that are tantalizing in terms of telling us a little more about the environment. One of these is this large bone right here. This is the neck bone of a brachiosaur, one of the very large long-necked dinosaurs that we think of in the golden age of dinosaurs of Jurassic Park. But they extended up into the Cretaceous and lived with Falcarius at this site. We also have a smaller vertebra backbone of an armored dinosaur, still very large for the kind of animal it belongs to. The armored dinosaurs, the ankylosaurs, were very abundant.
The small number of...
And Valerian Hunter says feathers are a modification of fur. They're actually a modification of scales. Because they, evolved on earlier reptiles, like dinosaurs, who did not have fur. So yeah, feathers are modified scales.
Other dinosaurs also might suggest something unusual is going on at this dinosaur graveyard. The site is almost exclusively Falcarius, and there is evidence of several mass die-offs. Why are these animals grouped together here, and what killed them?
Emily says, is fur a modification of scales too? I don't think it is. I think fur developmentally is different, but I'm not totally sure. Yeah.
Utah is home to several famous dinosaur graveyards, but the Falcarius site is different. It contains, almost exclusively, the bones of a single species.
Falcarius is preserved in a site with at least dozens and probably hundreds of dead dinosaurs. So the obvious question is, why are they there? What killed them? How are they deposited there? Well,
yeah, Valerian Hunter, that's so weird, I distinctly remember. Well, we could find a video on that if you'd like, if you'd like to take a look. But yeah. Let's see if we can find something good here. It's watchable. Feathers. Let's take a look at this. All right.
They are gorgeous in their complexity, delicate in their construction, and yet strong enough to hold a bird thousands of feet in the air. Like all things in nature, feathers evolved over millions of years into their modern form. It can be hard to imagine how this could have happened.
It's a neat format for a
After
video
all,
here.
what did the intermediate forms look like? What good is half a wing, festooned with half feathers? Thanks to science, we now know that birds are living dinosaurs. You can see the kinship in their skeletons. Certain dinosaurs share some anatomical details with birds found in no other animals, such as wishbones. And in the late 1990s, paleontologists started digging up some compelling support for that idea. Dinosaurs with bits of feathers still...
Yeah, you can get these as emotes here. If you've got a tier 2 or tier 3 sub.
Preserved on their bodies. Since then, scientists have found dozens of species of dinosaurs with remnants of feathers. Some were as small as pigeons, and some were the size of a school bus. If you look at how they're related on a family tree, the evolution of feathers doesn't seem quite so impossible. The most distant feathered relatives of birds had straight feathers that looked like wires. Then these wires split apart,
producing simple branches. In many dinosaur lineages, these simple feathers evolved into more intricate ones, including some that we see today on birds. At the same time, the feathers spread across the bodies of dinosaurs, turning from sparse patches of fuzz into dense plumage, which even extended down to their legs. A few fossils even preserve some of the molecules that give feathers color. They reveal a beautiful range of colors: glossy dark plumage, reminiscent of crows, alternating stripes of black and white, or splashes of bright red. Some dinosaurs had high crests on their heads, and others had long, dramatic tail feathers. Now, none of these dinosaurs could use their feathers to fly. Their arms were too short, and the rest of their bodies were far too heavy. But birds don't just use feathers to fly. A woodcock uses feathers to blend in perfectly with its forced backdrop.
But in the serious game of paleontology, much larger mysteries still remain.
Vicagri, thank you for the follow, and welcome to Paleontology.
Stretches its wings over its nest to shade its
On
young.
formal occasions, he's called Brontosaurus.
And Zara Spook, thank you for following as well.
70 feet long.
Good to have you here.
The scales at a substantial 35 tons.
Good stuff.
Its forced backdrop. An ostrich stretches its wings over its nest to shade its young. A peacock displays its magnificent tail feathers to attract peahens. Feathers could have served these functions for dinosaurs too. Exactly how feathered dinosaurs took flight is still a bit of a mystery. But if a small feathered dinosaur flapped its arms as it ran up an incline, its feathers would have provided extra
Wing-assisted
lift to
incline
help it
running,
run
yeah.
faster.
One
This
idea.
accident of physics might have led to the evolution of longer dinosaur arms, which would let them run faster and even leap short distances through the air. Eventually, their arms stretched out into wings. Only then, perhaps 50 million years after the first wiry feathers evolved, did feathers lift those dinosaurs into the sky.
We didn't really talk much about the developmental history of feathers, but they are derived from scales. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. Scales or feathers? It all comes down to a few genes. Scales, spines, feathers, and hair are examples of vertebrate skin appendages, which constitute a remarkably diverse group of microorgans. Anyway, if you want to read more about this, here is a link. Yeah. There you go. And there you go, Valerian. Yeah. It's great to have you here. It's great to talk about these things. And isolated, what species of skull is that behind me? This is Allosaurus fragilis here. Again, I'm going to be out in Utah in just a couple days now. And this is the state fossil of Utah. Or at least this is a 3D print of that state fossil. Allosaurus fragilis. It's large enough that it's kind of hard to fit in frame. But there you go. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, it took a long time to print, but it's definitely worth it. It's back. A little precarious here. The shelf is a little too narrow for it. Yeah. And Emily says, what are we digging in Utah? Dinosaurs. Some more iguanodontian dinosaurs. Again, so something that might be ancestral to both of these different critters, Iguana colossus and Hippodraco. Yeah. There's a very good shot that the critter that we're digging up is a brand new species or a new genus. We're pretty excited about that. I've been digging at the site for a number of different years. This will be my 3rd year at that site. And, yeah, it's going to be a good time. Been looking forward to this all year. Anywho, good stuff. And we'll be digging in the same geological formation they were digging in here.
But this Falcarius site is not an ancient riverbed.
Another possibility for theropod mass mortalities, or perhaps disease, things like botulism, bad water, poison water. You know, you have a red tide, algae blooms, releases toxins, animals come to drink, they die. Animals smell those carcasses, come to feed on them, and they die. So we have a number of theropod accumulations that are associated with shallow bodies of water, and these things tend to go fetid. But the density of bones suggests something unusual was going on.
A real mean kid.
Boone?
With 6-inch daggers for teeth, he was the terror of his neighborhood.
And Ricky WSF says, when you're in the field, are you on public or private land? Public land. We're on Bureau of Land Management. Federal public land out there. So we've got all our permits together and everything to be able to do that. And when you find fossils, are they yours? Do they belong to the person that owns the land? They belong to the people of the United States. They belong to we the people. They need to be held in the public trust. So paleontologists generally dig on public land. And then all of the fossils that we find end up in a repository. So like held in the public trust, you know?
That belongs in a museum!
You know? Since those lands belong to we the people, they belong to all of us as Americans. The fossils also belong to all of us. They need to be in a museum. And the whole important purpose of a museum is to make sure that those fossils will be accessible, protected, and available for study long after we're dead. You know? You can't guarantee that in a private collection. In a private collection, things get lost, they get sold, they get divvied up in divorces or after people die or whatever. Private collections are temporary. Public collections are forever. At least that's the idea, you know? Yeah. But yeah. And what's the protocol for getting a dig permit on BLM, on Bureau of Land Management land? Well, you need, to prove that you've got a fossil repository, so like an official public museum that will hold those fossils in the public trust for centuries into the future. You need to like show that you've got an agreement with a museum where all the fossils are going to end up there. And then you need some kind of you need to give some kind of assurance that you know what you're doing out there and you're not just going to be destroying fossils. So you need to have like a permit holder who applies, a permit holder there, who usually they've got, you know, advanced academic credentials, or they've got a lot of experience digging on public land, that kind of thing. Yeah, but it's a thing that you need to apply for. You apply for a permit from the public land agency, and then usually they have a paleontologist or somebody else on staff who reviews that and will grant or deny permits based on...
Let's protect our fossils, because if they're removed, America loses them forever.
And Ultravision Prime, thank you for the Prime sub. I appreciate that. Thank you for approving this channel for a subscription. I appreciate you. Thank you for that. Anyway, yeah. But yeah. And MLF says, do fossil enthusiasts ever buy up land just because it's a good place to dig? Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, that's happened before. It's happened before where... Yeah, there have been agreements with private landowners, with paleontologists, where, like, you know, commercial dealers will move in and say, like, hey, you know, we'll pay you a little bit of money, but all of the fossils go to us instead. And the private landowners are like, oh, okay, great. And, you know, scientists get shut out. That's happened, I don't know how many times. Too many. And is that Ken in the chat? Ken, how are you doing? Fetid pond. Yeah, yeah. Good to see you, Ken. I hope you're doing well. And doesn't the PI at least need to have a master's? I don't know, Ken. I do know, I've worked with crews before where the permit holder has not had an advanced degree, but that's probably an exception. I think that probably is a good general rule, is that, like, the principal investigator should have some sort of advanced degree, like a master's or something. Yeah. And thank you, Ungoy. That sounds wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. And, Bapeosaurus skull. Oh, very nice, Jim. Look at that. So this is on Sketchfab. This is not downloadable, unfortunately. But this is the skull of a Therizinosaur dinosaur. It's kind of squashed flat like this, but you can see the feathers on it right there, which is really cool. So this is one of those Therizinosaurs like we were talking about earlier. This is the feathered one from China that showed us that these animals did indeed have feathers. And you can see those, let's see, shift? There we go. You can see those feathers right there. Beautiful. Yeah, we can get you the 3D model? That would be awesome, Jim, except this is... How much relief is there to it? It looks pretty flat. I don't know if it would be worth printing, just because it's so flat. I could almost just, you know, print it on a 2D printer. And this seems to be an herbivore, Murph. Yeah. Therizinosaurs in general. Look at those teeth. They've got these simple, almost leaf-shaped teeth, or peg-shaped teeth, that are consistent with an herbivorous diet. Yeah. Cool stuff. Yeah, so when I say leaf-shaped, like there's the actual like crown of the tooth right there, and then there's the root. So it is, you know, they've got a few serrations. It almost reminds me of like a Stegosaurus tooth. Yeah. Pretty simple. You know, plant-eating tooth. And there we go, yeah. Plateosaurus on the right, Stegosaurus in the middle, and Erlikosaurus on the left. Well, here is my 3D printed Erlikosaurus skull. Right here. And they are pretty simple looking teeth. Yeah, check it out. So, I didn't print this in the highest resolution possible, but they do have pretty simple, nondescript teeth. Cool critters, Therizinosaurs. Yeah. Good stuff. And Nebulum8, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. And those teeth are tiny. They are, Dr. Morbius. Generally, as animals, as dinosaurs transition from meat-eating to plant-eating, the teeth tend to shrink. We see this in every time that transition has occurred among dinosaurs. So, yeah. Cool stuff. This was reported in Dentistry Today. Oh, that's cool. Stegosaurus had a stronger bite than its herbivorous brethren. Good stuff. Yeah. Oh. And DM Wing says, do you print them in one go or break them up? So my printer is pretty small. Like, this would not fit on the print bed because I just have a little Prusa printer. So I've got to print it in multiple pieces and then clear away all the supports and glue it together and fill in the seams, smooth everything out, and then paint it. Yeah. Yeah, and Axeman, I appreciate that. It does. I've learned some things about 3D printing and assembling the 3D prints afterward and all that. So, yeah, yeah. Anyhow, let's get back to our video here. Continue talking about the Cedar Mountain Formation.
Normally in nature, you may find a dead animal here or there, but to have this density of animals of one species is very unusual and suggests that we should be looking for an unusual cause.
The Suarez sisters are looking for that cause. They eagerly take to their roles as dinosaur detectives.
Paleo CSI, maybe.
Yeah,
I guess.
paleo CSI.
Could be potentially. Could be potentially. I mean, you know, you don't ever want to just rely on geochemistry. That's one of the big things in geology. Is you never just rely on geochemistry. You always look at the
lines
rocks.
of evidence.
You have to look at multiple lines of evidence. So
And
you have to,
that's what we're doing here with Jim. Jim and Lindsay are studying the animal. Selena's studying the geochemistry, and I'm studying the stratigraphy and sedimentology and the paleosols.
And the taphonomy.
And the taphonomy, the actual bones themselves. And all of those will be part of a puzzle that we put together.
Cosmological Kev had another question. Why does the skull behind you have so many spaces rather than being solid? Ooh, because it is a beautiful piece of evolutionary engineering here. We call these fenestrae in dinosaur skulls. And so, in life, these animals would have been kind of full of air. Here, I'll show you an example with a Camarasaurus skull here. Hang on. So especially in Saurischian dinosaurs, like your theropods and sauropods, you get these big, huge spaces in the skull like this. And these were actually hooked up to the respiratory system, at least in some cases. So, a few of these are, like, this is an eye socket right here, that's the orbit. But then you have the antorbital fenestra, you have the nares, so this is the bony nostril right here. You get the postorbital fenestra, temporal fenestrae up there. Especially with Saurischian dinosaurs, their skulls tend to be this, you know, it's almost like a beautiful piece of Gothic architecture or something like that, with these big sweeping arches and kind of light, airy architecture there. It's because these animals were all full of air. Like what Jim was saying in the video earlier with Falcarius and those air sacs and hollows in the vertebrae. Dinosaurs were full of air. I'll show you one of my favorite diagrams here. Love this. So this is a diplodocid sauropod, so plant-eating, long-necked dinosaur. So it's not full-grown, but everything in blue here is air, or at least it's respiratory. Whether you've got the lungs in this dark blue, or in this kind of more saturated electric blue, air sacs, or this kind of sky blue, these different pneumaticities, like pneumatic cavities in the vertebrae there. You know how birds are all full of air? They've got very lightweight, hollow bones. They've got air sacs and like pneumatic spaces throughout their axial skeleton. They got that from their dinosaur ancestors. From the ancestors of these guys too. The ancestor that gave rise to the sauropods and the theropods, including birds, had at least some degree of pneumaticity in that skeleton like this. So you get all of these wonderful, like, hollows and stuff in the vertebrae, and you also get that in the skull, too. Think about an animal like Camarasaurus. I'll show you a clip. Let's see. That's exactly what we want. Right here. So that's this dinosaur right here. You see the resemblance? Yep. Yep, anyway. But the point is that skull has got, you know, a bunch of different weight-saving features in it, so the head can be held up high like that, and at the end of a long neck. You get the same thing with dinosaurs like this, like with Allosaurus. Find you a good reconstruction of Allosaurus. There we go. That's a nice one there. These are animals that also had a muscular and not very short neck. I don't know. It's longer than the necks of most carnivorous mammals, in proportion to the body. So you want to save as much weight as you can, especially with like an animal that's running around on land. Anything you can manage in terms of weight savings is gonna help. It's gonna increase your, you know, power to weight ratio. So dinosaurs have been very efficient like that. Mammal skulls tend to be weird and overbuilt, in my opinion. They just don't have that kind of elegant beauty that dinosaur skulls have. With these lovely fenestrae in them. Just don't really get that in mammal skulls. Anyhow. And that was indeed John Goodman, yeah. Ice Allen says, is that the one that sneezed in Jurassic Park? No, that one's supposed to be Giraffatitan, aka Brachiosaurus. Camarasaurus is a relative. It's also a macronarian sauropod, so it's related to Brachiosaurus, probably. But it's distinctly different. Camarasaurus. Yeah. Let's see. Trying to find you a decent Camarasaurus. That's a pretty good one there. Yeah. Yeah. Anywho. So yeah, anyway, good stuff. Let's
Back
continue
in the
our.
lab, Selena Suarez
our
turns
video
to
here.
rare earth geochemistry to help
You bet,
solve
Cosmological
this
Kev.
mystifying puzzle.
You bet.
The good thing about this analysis is that it's not very destructive to the bones. We only need a little bit.
By looking at the concentration of rare earth elements within the fossil, the chemistry of its environment can be determined. Each fossil contains the unique signature of the groundwater it was fossilized in.
The way we do that is by taking a piece of bone, just a little sliver from the top layer of the bone.
mortal
That's
and
where
pestle it up.
most of the elements get concentrated. And these elements get into the bone when they're fossilized. So as the bone turns from an organic piece of matter into an actual, rock, an actual inorganic piece of matter, these elements get incorporated into the bone.
Tempted Guy says, which geological period is your favorite? The Cretaceous, for sure. I've done almost all of my fieldwork in the Cretaceous. Much of my research has been on Cretaceous dinosaurs. The Cretaceous period is
The
definitely my
magic
favorite.
of rare earth geochemistry lies in determining the relative concentrations of these uncommon elements in each fossil. The dissolved bone is next run through a high-tech spectrometer, which actually counts the atoms of each rare earth element present. It does this by bombarding the bone solution with a 6,000-degree argon flame.
What the machine does then is it measures the mass of each of those different elements that are charged now. So once it goes...
And Salamander says, would you have much interest in visiting Jurassic or Triassic formations? Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. And I've visited some before. I've just never really done any work. I've done a little bit of work in the Morrison Formation, like a couple of afternoons working in the Morrison, digging up bits of a sauropod dinosaur. But never actually done any field work in the Triassic, not yet. But I'd love to.
From that, and it counts all the atoms, it gets shown on to the computer.
By analyzing these numbers, the relative concentrations of elements gives each fossil its unique signature.
What we're seeing is that the animals were probably being fossilized at different times and dying off in great numbers at different times, because you not only see differences in the rocks, the type of rocks, but also differences in the geochemistry and the conditions of the bones. Obviously, we have a huge deposit of this animal, Falcarius, in a very strange environment where you have lots of springs popping up. And it's very unusual that you see all these animals dying in some type of relationship to these springs.
The Falcarius site revealed at least 2 die-offs.
I'm standing here on the contact between the Morrison Formation, the red rocks behind me.
Yeah, so this is going to be pretty similar in age to some of the rocks that we're going to be working next week. So yeah, Morrison Formation down there, that's where you've got some of your most famous Jurassic dinosaurs. Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, aka Brontosaurus, etc. are all from the Morrison. Camarasaurus too, the guy I just showed you with the big blocky skull. With the big fenestrae in it. From the Morrison.
In the base of the Cedar Mountain Formation. The main quarry has bone right from this contact up through to about this interval. Overlying this, right here is the cap rock of carbonate. We have this great mass mortality. Hundreds of animals died in this environment right here. About 1 kilometer away, half a mile if you will, the Suarez sisters, doing their research on these carbonate rocks, found a second mass mortality of Falcarius, our new dinosaur.
Oh boy.
This proves that there was at least 2 mass mortalities of these animals in this immediate area.
Jim thinks this stuff is Falcarius. We'll see once more of this material is analyzed.
Could the same springs that preserve these bones be the killer of these animals? That is, for now, an unanswerable question. But these hard deposits may well prove to be why these fossils exist at all.
What we're working.
And which digs is Jim joining? So he's going to be out with us near Moab, Utah next week. I think he gets in on like Friday.
Working on is a theory that perhaps this cap rock that occurs through this area held down a skiff of sediment on this erosion surface that preserved these animals where everywhere else this age of rocks was removed. This could well be the oldest Cretaceous site in all of North America.
It turns out we're working on to be an older one. Yeah.
It could well be the oldest Cretaceous site in all of North America.
The one we're working next week is older than this.
As with any new discovery, Falcarius raises as many questions as it does answers.
Behind us, we have the red rocks of the Morrison Formation, these red mudstones of Jurassic age. They're overlain by the more drab sediments of the Yellow Cat member of the Cedar Mountain Formation. Both of these rock units have faunal ties with Europe and actually even with Africa. However, the discovery of Falcarius shows us an animal that is only known in China, particularly for beds this old. How did it get here? Well, at this time, Alaska didn't exist. It was an island floating in the North Pacific, floating northward for a collision with a piece of Canada, and this wasn't to happen for another 15 million years or so. The only route to China from Utah was through Europe. This is where the close relatives of these animals lived. Did they originate here, or did they originate in China? That question is totally open at this point.
So, if that's the case, if you can't get to North America through Asia at the time, if you've got to go through Europe, then we should expect to find maybe a therizinosaur material in Europe from this particular time. And I don't think anybody's done that yet, so that's exciting. There's like, that's a testable hypothesis. If they're coming through Europe, you would expect to find fossils of them there from this time. And to my knowledge, nobody's found those yet. Maybe someday soon somebody will. That's cool.
One of the most exciting aspects of the Falcarius find is its sheer numbers. The majority of dinosaurs are known on the basis of one partial skeleton, or even just a few bones.
Yep.
Dozens of partial Falcarius skeletons have already been collected, and the site promises to yield hundreds, if not thousands more.
Right to the...
And Ricky WSF says, when we were talking about a mass die-off, is that from a worldwide situation or something regional? So in this case, it's probably something regional or local with these animals. Maybe they died off in a drought. Maybe there was a bad algal bloom or, botulism in a local water source or something like that. Yeah. We're talking about something over just a few years probably, and in that local area.
Side of me, we pulled out 400 bones in a cubic meter. That's a space about 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot. And that's a remarkable density of bones.
This graveyard contains many well-preserved fossils in huge numbers. But to see how each piece fits together, it's necessary to look at the known relatives of the newly discovered Falcarius. Its head is most like its meat-eating cousins.
This is the skull of
Velociraptor. Man, I've got this same Velociraptor skull. That's a Rob Gaston one right there. And are there many places in Europe that are sufficiently open for prospecting? Yeah, Spain and Portugal have got beautiful territory there, Emleth. All right, hang on just a second. Oh, never mind. It's tucked away in storage right now. I'm not going to go fish this out. But I've got that same Velociraptor skull.
Velociraptor from Mongolia. It's probably the best preserved skull
and
ever.
Sagan more likely, says Jim. Interesting. It does look kind of Sagan-like, doesn't it?
Recovered. Even the sclerotic rings, the bones around the eye, are in place within the orbit. And as with other Maniraptorans, we see the plumage that these animals might have had in life, and the fur-like feathers coming down its neck.
The Mongolian desert buried some dinosaurs alive. Sandstorms preserved several oviraptors in their entirety. This provides a wonderful blueprint, as Oviraptor is the closest relative to Falcarius.
Here is a wonderfully articulated oviraptor. The oviraptors are the closest relatives to the therizinosaurs. They share a common ancestor. Falcarius is the oldest, most primitive type of therizinosaur we have. If you look at the front, the chest area, we can see that the chest
wishbone right
is
there.
In a very similar way.
The furcula.
You can see the hands, the Maniraptoran hands are similar. See the shorter upper
looks very
thigh bone
juvenile.
or femur, longer lower bone or tibia fibula.
Size of the head.
This is more of a running, agile type of animal. And as we mentioned, these animals...
And Jim says, now we think ornithomimids. I was about to ask that. Are therizinosaurs thought to be closer to oviraptorosaurs or ornithomimids nowadays? Because I think I remember hearing somebody say, maybe it's James Napoli, I forget, that therizinosaurs might actually be outside of Maniraptora at this point. Or maybe ornithomimosaurs are within Maniraptora. But yeah.
Have shorter tails. Unlike the therizinosaurs, these animals are completely toothless. These may have been plant eaters as well. Finding animals that are perfectly articulated.
I'd love to print that, Emeleth, if I got...
As we find them in Mongolia,
I don't have the files for that, though.
Critical for accurately reconstructing the skeletons of animals like Falcarius that have all fallen apart or disarticulated.
Guided by these complete skeletons, Rod Gaston reconstructed Falcarius. His challenge was to take a pile of bones no one had ever seen before and try to figure out how they all fit together.
Pretty
when we start a skeletal reconstruction, the first thing that we do...
So Rob Gaston is the guy for whom Gastonia is named, a dinosaur that Jim named. Gastonia, lovely polycanthine ankylosaur. Find you a good reconstruction. That's a good one there. Yeah. Oh, this one's really pretty too. Gastonia squatting down on the ground. Yeah. Lovely critter. Not the sort of animal you'd want to get into a fight with either. Yeah. Lovely animal, Gastonia. Named after Bob Gaston.
Do is take the original fossil,
Rob
which
Gaston.
has been cleaned and prepared in a lab, and we make a research cast, which is just an accurate cast of the original fossil. And before we cast them, we need to make sure that they're stabilized for casting, which often means filling cracks with carbo wax, and also we need to make sure that the bone has been properly consolidated with glue. No reconstruction work is done on the original fossil. We take the research cast, we restore the areas that are missing. You can see clearly this big chunk out of this ilium. And when you look at the pelvis after it's been reconstructed, what we've attempted to do is restore those areas. Consulting with paleontologists, using comparative literature, casts, things of that nature from animals that are more complete, we then try and get an idea of what those missing areas look like.
That's actually a really lovely explanation.
He's doing
of this.
that same process on this cast of a tarbosaur skull, where he's applying epoxy putty to the missing areas.
Before this restoration can take place, the bones must be cast. The first step in creating a mold is building a clay wall around half the piece. Then it's time to add rubber.
We use a silicone.
Kendry says, how does someone choose if to leave party in stone? Or to... Oh, for prepping something, like, do you want to completely remove it from the surrounding rock so you can hold it and look at it in 3D, or do you leave it embedded in the matrix there? It usually depends on, like, what are the... Is it going to go on display, or does it have to go into a museum drawer? What are the different anatomical features that you need to see on the bone? Sometimes you might have to prep something so it's completely out of the rock. Sometimes having the rock there is really nice. So, like, if we're talking about this right here,
animals that are perfectly
this right here,
articulated.
With this critter here, if you can get enough of it exposed so that you can really study, like, the external anatomy of it, that's sometimes all you have to do. And sometimes you can CT scan the whole thing and, like, digitally prep away the rock so that you can look at the interior of the bone and kind of ignore the rock in the CT scan. Sometimes you can do that, so it depends. Almost everything is like a case-by-case basis in dinosaur paleontology, if that makes sense. Yeah.
The most important thing with silicone rubber is that it does not adhere to the fossil when you take the fossil out of the mold, so therefore you don't get as much breakage or damage to the original piece. After that's done, we then apply a resin, what's known as a backup mold. Or
Dinosaurs
mold
are kind of funny. I mean, you know.
CCDDUUBB, thank you for the follow. C-Dub, appreciate it. Welcome to Paleontology.
And then we flip the piece over, pull out the modeling clay. We'll repeat the process again. So if everything's been done properly, we're able to pull the two rubber halves apart, pull the original bone out of the rubber, and then we end up with essentially our mold, and we're ready for casting.
Nice.
To make the cast, a plastic resin is poured into the molds. Mixing two parts of the resin together activates a chemical reaction, which makes it harden. Filler and color are added to make the resulting cast lighter weight and the desired color.
And then once it's full, turn it and get all the air bubbles up to the top of it.
There you get some
Once
ribs.
the resin has hardened, the plastic cast is carefully removed from the mold and placed in the sand to keep its shape as it cools.
After the casts are pulled out of the molds, they're cleaned, and we begin the assembly process, which on smaller things basically just amounts to drilling and pinning the pieces in, and then we use super glue, things like that, to hold them together, sometimes epoxies. The larger pieces, however, require some pre-engineering where we do incorporate steel into the pieces.
This steel is important in assembling the long neck and tail of Falcarius, and for its legs to be able to support this weight.
That enables us to weld the pieces together, providing a strong structure to put the skeleton together.
Pretty cool, right? So much work that's involved in this.
No matter how many months you've spent with the skeletal material, making the molds, the casts, the reconstructions, the skeleton always comes out a little bit different than what you think it's going to. So here we go. Andrew, you want to give me a hand putting this together? One thing that's really interesting too about putting Falcarius together, or any partially known skeleton for that matter, is that there's things that we may never know about this animal. So no matter how much research has been done on reconstructing it, we may never know whether what we've done is correct or not. So there we go.
A clearer picture of Falcarius and his environment has emerged through the efforts of Kirkland's crew.
Pretty cool. Miss Yvette says, this is cool to show the bone in the rock. Yeah, there we go. That's Aletta pelta. This should have been our state dinosaur in California. Yeah. Yeah, and they did prep away a lot of the rock, but there's still a lot of it on there. The orientation is really important, and like, you've got all these bivalves growing on it. Oysters. Pretty cool. This dinosaur became like a reef temporarily before it was buried. This is another dinosaur that I think Jim Kirkland helped describe. I think he's one of the authors on the paper. Anyway, Cosmological Kev says, I'm a user of Audible. I was hoping to find a great courses on dinosaurs, but no luck. Are there any books you would recommend? David Norman's book isn't bad. It's on Audible. I listened to it on there. Yeah, I've not read Steve Brusati's Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, but I don't know. I've had some people say it's pretty decent. Maybe check that out. Yeah. Brusati's is real good, says Jim. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. If you just like search, dinosaurs on Audible, you'll find some stuff for sure. And yeah, that paper was Ford and Kirkland. Let me see if I can find that, Jim. I bet you I have that. Aletta pelta. Should be here in my library. It's searching. That's too cute to write and narrate your own book. One of these days, Ungoy. One of these days. Yeah, and here is that paper. Carlsbad Ankylosaurid and not a Notosaurid. Tracy Ford and Jim Kirkland. Yeah. So there's the paper. I don't know who scanned this. It's a little messy, but it's cool. Yeah. Good stuff. Talk Tracy into prepping more elements. Oh, really? More of Aletta pelta? That's going to be exciting. I might have a chance to go visit that specimen for the first time in September, because TwitchCon is going to be in San Diego in late September, and I might end up going. We'll see. All right, let's continue this.
A clearer picture of Falcarius and his environment has emerged through the efforts of Kirkland's crew. With the huge number of bones still in the graveyard, they hope many more questions will be answered.
The Crystal Geyser Quarry, which preserves hundreds of individuals of Falcarius, is really unique and rare in the fossil record. And it's supremely important because when we have all these bones, you'll notice that we have babies, we have juveniles, and we have adults. We have hundreds of elements to make
That's really
comparisons
exciting.
across.
Holy
We're
cow.
able to tell about Falcarius, how fast it grew, what age it was when it reached sexual maturity.
It's
there are
rare for a
differences between
dinosaur.
Males and females, how much variation there was in the population. These are things that we rarely get to access from the fossil record. And as a result, we're able to reconstruct the ecology and the life history of a species of dinosaur that's been extinct for over 125 million years. That's nothing short of incredible.
The amazing wealth of material at the Crystal Geyser Dinosaur Quarry means that scientists may eventually know more about Falcarius utahensis than just about any other known dinosaur.
So exciting. Shoot. And Jim says the Gemini raptor bone bed at the Suarez Quarry has just as many. Was that the one earlier? We're at 4334 there. Earlier, there were Selena or Marina talking about another site. Here, I think?
Sisters doing their research on these carbonate rocks found a second mass mortality of Falcarius, our new dinosaur. This proves that there was at least 2 mass mortalities of these.
Is this Gemini raptor, or did this turn out to be Falcarius also, Jim? Because I was wondering about that. Is this the Gemini raptor site? It is Gemini raptor. Very cool. Very cool. Nice. I was wondering about that. Yeah. Anyway, awesome.
The Crystal Geyser Dinosaur Quarry means that scientists may eventually know more about Falcarius utahensis than just about any other known dinosaur.
Pretty awesome.
It's remarkable. Every other specimen is a partial skeleton. Here we have hundreds of animals, babies to adults, all in the same locality, probably killed at the same time. It gives us a remarkable opportunity to study this animal.
Was Falcarius the first therizinosaur? Did they evolve in Utah or in China? Why did they become plant eaters? What attracted this strange animal to this site? What killed them off in vast numbers? Perhaps we will never know the answers to all these questions. Buried in the Utah Dino Graveyard at Crystal Geyser Quarry are still many clues. Each summer, our paleo detectives will be searching for more answers.
Dr. Irrefutable, thank you for that Ko-Fi contribution. Thank you very much for provisions and supplies on the dig. Thank you, Dr. Irrefutable, for your generosity there. I really appreciate that one-time donation. Thank you for that. Spectacular. Appreciate that. It's gonna help me get fuel to drive out there, and maybe some drinks too. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Pretty neat. And let's see. Jim says 2 therizinosaur species is mass mortality is a kilometer apart and about 1 million years younger. And this is such a special place. Holy cow. The Cedar Mountain Formation of Utah. Incredible. And I'm going to be out there next week. Just a few days. Tuesday, driving out with Don DeBlue there.
In the Utah Dino Graveyard at Crystal Geyser Quarry.
Myosaurs always ate their vegetables.
Zorlock, thank you for the follow. Welcome.
Are still many clues. Each summer, our paleo detectives will be searching for more answers. And every year, a more complete and complex picture of Falcarius and the land that it inhabited will emerge.
Pretty awesome. Here is a link to that lovely documentary. If you'd like to bookmark that for later. Very cool. Anytime somebody asks me, like, oh, Danny, you work on dinosaurs. What's a cool dinosaur that not enough people talk about, What's a dinosaur that's still kind of underground, so to speak? One that's underappreciated by non-paleontologists? And my answer is usually Falcarius. It represents such an interesting piece of evolutionary history where it's, you know, kind of transitional between carnivore and herbivore. It's an early therizinosaur. It plugs this, like, kind of nice gap there in the evolutionary history of these animals. It's the first therizinosaur, earliest therizinosaur known from North America. It's from the Cedar Mountain Formation, which is always interesting. And the sample size is just absolutely tantalizing. So many individuals of this animal. Like, you could run population studies. You could look at individual variation. You could look for sexual dimorphism. You could do, like, growth studies of this critter. It's so cool. And despite a documentary being made about it there, it's still not really well known enough to the general public. Scientifically, it's just such an exciting, interesting dinosaur. So, big props to Falcarius and everybody who's worked on it. Very cool. And the Doling's mole species are older and bigger. We might find some of those. I'm so excited at the very thought of that, Jim. So stay tuned, everybody. In 4 days, I'm going to be out in the field. And I'll be streaming as often as I can. Cannot wait. Very excited. But yeah. Hopefully phone doesn't melt. Tombstone, hopefully. We'll see. And Ricky says, when Utah was thriving with dinosaurs, where was Utah located? In the same spot. Yeah. I don't know if North America has really changed that much in its orientation, north or south, east or west, but there were times when Utah was underwater. Let's see here. 170 million years ago, during the Jurassic. So Utah is right there. Move up in time a little bit into like Morrison times. There's Utah right there. Move forward 120 million years ago. Utah's still right there. 105, you get the seaway starting to intrude into the center of North America. And by 90 million years ago, it's kind of bisected North America. These are not the greatest, but anyway, there are times when parts of Utah are underwater. The eastern part of Utah is underwater during like the Cenomanian, something like that. Middle Cretaceous time. There is no official Middle Cretaceous, but you know, the uppermost part of the Lower Cretaceous, or the lowermost part of the Upper Cretaceous. But yeah. I get a lot of questions. One of the most common questions that you'll see in the chat while I'm out in the field pertains to why are there so many dinosaur fossils in Utah? Yeah. And I've got a clip with old Bob Bacher that I like to show to help explain this. There's a number of different factors that all kind of come together to make the Rocky Mountain region of the Western United States and Canada such a wonderful place to find fossils. Mesozoic fossils in particular. You know, dinosaurs lived all over the world in all kinds of different habitats, but some of the best dinosaur-bearing rocks in the world are from the western U.S., from Utah in particular. And, yeah, this kind of talks about why a little bit.
Marsh was transfixed, while his fellow passengers saw magnificent landscapes.
And Lake Bonneville was much, much, much more recently, HD, yeah.
Marsh saw much more. Schooled in geology, he knew that great troves of prehistoric fossils could be buried in the ancient rocks.
Middle Cretaceous, Aptian, Albian, or... Yeah, Jim,
entombed
that would
in
be
the sandy clays, he recalled. there must be hidden the remains of many strange animals new to science, long waiting to be brought to light. Here was a chance to establish his reputation while working on the greatest scientific problem of the age.
And a clipboard. I do have a
Charles
clipboard,
Darwin's
MLS. Yeah.
revolutionary work,
It's already out
The
there.
Origin of Species, had been published in England only a few years earlier. But Darwin despaired that little physical evidence of evolution could be found in Europe, where the heavily forested land concealed the geology underneath.
Yep. So much of Europe, it's covered by forests, or parking lots, or Tesco's, or etc. You know.
The arid, open American West, Marsh was convinced, would yield the kind of fossil evidence needed to prove Darwin's theory.
The American West is blessed by a couple of things.
There we go.
Number one, a long history of mountains going up. And when mountains go up, next to the foothills of mountains are a depression, a basin.
A depositional
and as soon as
basin
mountains
there,
go up, they start getting eroded by streams. The streams bring down sand and mud that fills up that basin at the bottom of the foothills. That's a wonderful place to die and leave a good-looking corpse. But wait, there's another element. It's dry. It's really dry. It's drier than the Alps or the Urals. It's drier than the Caucasus. So when you could take the railroad to Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico, you walk around, you can see the rocks, naked rocks. And the rocks are full of fossils, including bones.
Yep. There you go.
Marsh collected little on this first trip.
Bacher, always so animated. Yeah. Dinosaurs lived all over the world in all kinds of different habitats. But we really are blessed in the western U.S. with lots of exposed rock because it is so dry and because you have these orogenic events. You had mountain building that created these depositional basins. Stuff was deposited in those basins. And then later on, it went from a depositional environment to an erosional environment. It went from a place where rock was being created to where rock is now being destroyed. It's being eroded away. And that's how we find those fossils in the first place. We hike along in environments like this. We look at the ground. We prospect for fossils. We look for anything that's poking out.
Giant, wreaking his prehistoric fury on modern man and his puny machines.
Clock Owl, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Yeah. Anywho. And I didn't realize they guessed there were fossils there and went looking. I assumed somebody found fossils first. I mean, there's got to be a first person to go out and look. And, yeah. Anywho. I am very much looking forward to being out there in Utah, looking at the rocks there. And I'm really looking forward to bringing you along, show you what it's like to dig up fossils live. I started today's stream early because I have to wrap up today's stream early. So that's what we're going to do right now. The next time I see you all, I'll be out in the desert of eastern Utah. I can't wait. It's going to happen before you know it. Let's throw a Deinonychus here under our credits. Let's find somebody to raid here as we wrap up. Here we go. And... Well, PaleoStream is on. Let's go right into PaleoStream. Sometimes there's a bit of language in PaleoStream's channel, so be aware of that. But PaleoStream is a real-life paleo artist. Reconstructs extinct organisms for scientific publication and for the edification of the audience, too. So you're going to like PaleoStream if you've not tuned in yet. Everybody, thank you so much to everyone who's appearing in our credits right now. From new followers to raiders, from ongoing subscribers to cheerers and gifters, and of course moderators. Thank you, mods, for doing everything you do. I am so excited to be bringing all of you out into the field next week, and it's gonna be a good time. But I've got a lot of stuff I got to get ready before that. I'm gonna take off now. Jascaro, thank you for the follow too. Sneaking that in right under the wire. I appreciate it. Anyway, everybody, we're gonna go check out PaleoStream. So I will see you there. You all take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. And stay curious. I'll see you next week.